Good evening, everyone, or good morning or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. We are coming to you live with Britton from Some Okie Dude. Welcome to the fourth ever book chat with Benghis. Thanks for coming on.
How you doing, man? I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here, as they say.
Oh, good. I have had an extremely relaxing, kind of solitary day. No one's at the house. I was watching a movie, a very meditative movie, reading some and writing a Goodreads review for a series I really just loved wrapping up. So it was a cool day.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Well, like I told you a few seconds ago, I was finished up a D&D campaign I was doing with some friends of mine. I was playing in it. I wasn't the DM. I did that about
Yeah.
oh man, actually around the time that I ended that campaign is when we started this one. So yeah, it's going good. It's going good today. I did get
Oh,
some
good.
reading into before then. I started What Moves
Ooh,
the Dead, doing that as a buddy read with John from Talking Story.
What Moves the Dead? Who writes that? Who wrote that?
Uh, T Kingfisher. There it is, right there.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a
That's the same author as like Nettle and Bone and Wizard's Defensive Guide to Baking or something like that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Defensive Baking one sounds like some fun, cozy-ish fantasy that I might enjoy. But is
Yeah.
this one? This sounds like a horror book.
Yeah. It's a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, except with
Oh,
more of um well, for the modern day.
oh, cool. My seventh grade English teacher was obsessed with Edgar Allan Poe, so we read The Telltale Heart, All the House of Usher, Cask of Amontillado, uh, the the Raven, some other poetry. Now we were all probably too young for it back then, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was one of the best, or at least one of the best short story writers, anyway.
I've never played D&D, and it's something that just no one around me ever did. I never did it. But you just wrapped up like years long campaign, you said?
I did. Yeah, I went about maybe a year, maybe a little longer than that. I don't know, but
Oh wow! Like
yeah,
how often would you meet to play like on
we would meet
average?
every Saturday, and we would start at
Wow.
around 3:30 Central my time. It was kind of weird getting everybody together because we were in different parts of the world. The DM is British, so yeah. I'm also
Wow. A story that lasted like a whole year. That's really cool. Just once a week, kind of dipping in. That
yeah. It was kind of like Mass Effect. If you ever played that game, a little bit.
no, I'm very like just out of the loop on video games because I've always just played like Nintendo games on Nintendo consoles. Loves things like Zelda games and Super Mario games, Donkey Kong, those kinds of platformers. But I never branched out into the other consoles.
Well, a book I'm hoping to start very soon. I'm sure this will interest you. Sharp's Tiger by
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Oh my! If you like it, you have 23 books to spend with Sharp and Company, uh, and most of them were really great wartime adventures. Uh, so, oh, it's great. Do you at all do audio when you read, or do you listen to audiobooks at all, or is it mostly print?
I've listened to Stephen Pacey's The First Law, or him reading The First Law, which I know a lot of people have probably said this, and I'm sure there's people who are probably sick of hearing it, but he's just that good. People don't miss out.
Yeah. I own the paperbacks, but I didn't crack them open. Actually, I only listened to that because it was such a joy. But I had the same issue with the Sharp books because the narrator Rupert Farley is the closest thing to Stephen Pacey I've ever heard, at least for the British editions. And if you get it on Audible, at least the first bunch are Rupert Farley narrated. He's just incredible, and he's like Pacey is like similar age, kind of an old grizzled, not too old, but like middle-aged grizzled British stage and screen actor. Very similar vibe to Pacey, just perfect for these books. So I have started to almost always do my books hybrid because I enjoy hearing what narrators bring to the story. They perform things so much more lively than I ever will kind of in my head as I read. And so I feel so much more immersed when I'm listening to an audiobook or reading immersively. And I did a lot of Sharp actually immersively because I had all the print books, picked them up mostly from used bookstores.
Yeah,
And
I remember that. I remember you showing me that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I would just enjoy kind of reading them immersively. So like listening to having the audiobook on at like 1.8 or 2 times speed, which is right around my print reading speed, and then just go off to the races. And these are books where like they're not overly elegant in terms of the prose. They're not that thematically deep. And so they weren't the type that I had to often just stop and contemplate life and existence and the poetic phrasing. Cornwell was much more poetic in the Warlord. In the Warlord,
we don't always read for that. I get that.
Yeah, not at all. But all this to say that if you are at all inclined to do it hybrid, picking up the book sometimes or the audiobook when you're on the go, or do it immersively, there's almost no better audio experience in the entire world, at least that I've heard, than Rupert Farley with the first 3 Sharp books that take place in India. He's astounding. He will add to your experience humongously.
I'll have to check it out. It sounds,
what's brought about Sharp's Tiger?
Well, I've been wanting to read Sharp for a while, and I kind of made a note for myself, like March. March is the time I'm going to be reading that, but I'm also juggling a couple of other books, so it should be fun when I get around to it.
Oh man, I miss Sharp. For like probably almost 2 years, I was going through all the books, which is probably a very quick time to do it. Although a lot of people, like my dad has always read a lot of historical fiction. Like he'll just do these long binges and just do the whole Sharp series. Like that was outer these long series. So a lot of people love binging this kind of stuff. That's even a little bit more episodic. But for like our corner of BookTube, it's kind of rare for people to do like massive, huge binges, especially of things that are like more repetitive or episodic.
Yeah, that was one of my things. I'm like, my God, you're just crank. Because I remember when we had our discussion on my channel, I was like, my God, you just read them like it's going out of style, man. And you're like, yeah.
I just couldn't get enough.
They were like to spread them out, know.
Yeah. Oh no, it would have been great if I spread them out over the course of like many years, and when I needed the little injection, because they were just so easy to spend time with. Like it didn't require too much mental energy. It takes place in our world and like early 1800s, and it was very immersive in terms of like I felt like I was back there, in the Napoleonic Wars, but it was just you don't have to deal with the mental strain of getting used to new world building terms and secondary world, and which often is awesome with fantasy. But when you have like the mental energy and desire to do that, it's awesome. But when you just want to go on a fun adventure that's gritty and immersive, man, Cornwell is great for that. Sharp is great for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting to read that for a while. I mean, I also like Sean Bean a lot, so.
I have you watched the show? I do need to watch the show.
I've watched like clips. I've never watched like the whole thing. I don't know where I can find them because Sharp.
Yeah. I don't know either. They must exist somewhere for streaming, but I gotta check those out. They're supposed to be pretty good, and Sean Bean's a great actor. So
indeed he is.
But I wanted to avoid watching it before I finished reading, because as I started reading, I started to build kind of mental image, my own version of Sharp, and it was not really like Sean Bean. Like if I watch a show adaptation, those become my mental visualizations of characters. Like I watched all of Game of Thrones show, and I just read the books this past year, and I was imagining all the cast of the show as I was reading, like very clearly. And often my images of characters aren't fully distinct. Like I create a very impressionistic image in my mind, and I had this image of Sharp that was not Sean Bean, and so I was like, yeah, I want to stay away, and what save the show for after.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I had I read Gone Baby Gone by Dennis Lehane, but I watched the film first. So yeah, when I was reading the Kinsey and Gennaro series, which is like 6 books, yeah, that was interesting. It was I imagined Casey Affleck and Michelle Monaghan in the roles because that's who played the characters in the Gone Baby Gone movie. But yeah, no, it's interesting how adaptations work. I'm starting to kind of not that some of the greatest films of all time are adaptations. I get that, but I'm just kind of, oh God, I haven't been watching a lot of movies recently.
Yeah, neither have I. I was a huge cinephile, like when I was in high school and in college, and just seeing lots of older films, foreign films, almost everything that was kind of coming out from Hollywood. I was just steeped in it, and reading was more of like a very secondary kind of artistic consumption hobby of mine back then. But it slowly shifted over time to almost like 95% reading and very little TV and movies. Like I'll go for just TV that truly is just like the most like niche stuff that interests me. Like recently, House of the Dragon, Severance, Beef, but
my buddy
not
Jason's
too
been
much.
telling me to watch Beef.
It was
great.
It was amazing. It was incredible. I just binged that right up.
Yeah, he's generally like not he's generally very picky about the stuff he watches. So yeah, I'll have to check it out.
But I used to binge whole shows. Like I binged all of Breaking Bad at some point after college, all of Sopranos, all of like The West Wing. Like I was a huge TV and movie person, and now I just find myself just craving reading experience or audiobook experience more than I feel. It's just more fulfilling to me. It's more engaging. Like, man, I will get bored so quickly with movies and TV now. Just with books, you're more active in the process. You go at your speed. You can speed up, slow down. You're creating, scenes in your mind. You're processing visual information if you're reading. You're processing auditory information if you're listening to the audiobook. But you're then creating a lot of that kind of visual yourself. So I don't know how much of a visualizer you are, but I am just always like imagining the scenes, the characters, acting things out, the settings.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have to get it in my head. My friend Josh put it, you like to hallucinate when you're reading?
Yeah,
I guess so.
It's so hard to imagine like the people that don't really visualize or that don't even have that real ability. I have difficulty just envisioning the experience of reading without that. Because it's such just a natural habit that I can't not do. Like I can't inhibit it.
Yeah, I'll admit it's been kind of tough recently getting reads in because I've completed a couple books, but since I've started college, it's been taking up a lot of my time again. So I'm slowly inching through. I did.
Okay, so wait, so you just started college up? So you're
no,
I know you're
I started up about a month ago now.
Oh, okay. And you said your birthday's soon, right? You're turning
23? Next Saturday I'll be 23.
Man, I am so jealous of you. I feel at heart like I'm 22, 23, like the same exact age, but I miss that time so much where I was either in college or graduating and just felt like my whole life was ahead of me with endless possibilities. And man, there's nothing like the energy of youth too. But interestingly though, in terms of my reading life, it's never been thriving as much now because when you're in college, you are reading a lot for class.
Yeah, last year was cracking. I read if I kept up with it on Goodreads, I had like 85 I completed. That's the ones I kept up with. So
But what kinds of classes are you taking or that you want to take? Are they reading heavy?
Well, I did just finally sign up for a creative writing minor because I've been meaning to do that for a bit. So I'm probably going to take those.
Ooh.
I'm going to start those probably next semester. But I'm taking a Spanish class right now, which not fun. And I'm also taking a video news course, which is fun. And also I am working on the radio at my
Ooh.
school. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So you'll probably be quite busy with just all going to class and doing all the little reading assignments for class and writing assignments and
But
uh,
I did complete some books though. I read Sinlin Ascends recently, which Alan
ooh.
from Alexandria was like that's one of his like I'm gonna yeah I see you
That's
got it.
one of my TBR veterans that I've had for the longest without having cracked open yet.
I know what you mean, man. It's yeah it's yeah it was good. It was I enjoyed it a lot. It's
You
I
planning
mean
to continue?
yeah I hope so. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna see if I can try. But
I
one of
really
the
like
things
these cover designs, like the theme and the
yeah, it's kind of
oh,
like
it's
it's kind of steampunky, but it's
yeah.
also like
Yeah,
Tower of Babel. It's really
yeah.
weird.
Yep. Oh
It's
yeah.
really it's really interesting how it works. I haven't really um also there's a little dwarf in it who's great. There's a dwarf character or well, little person character. I don't want to ruffle some feathers. But yeah, he's great. A lot of it's just fun. I enjoyed it. I also read Kindred, which just I did a conversation with my friend Darko from Kindles and Kicks, and then like the day of like I'm about to put up our conversation, his video he did on Kindred blows up, and I was just like, oh, man, oh.
That's on my TBR for when I am ready for some very real world intensity. I
Oh yeah, it's
know,
a heavy book. It's
yeah,
it's not one for the faint of
yeah.
heart. It's
It's one I
fantastic
should have
book
read
though.
back in my college days and post college days when I was doing a lot of the heavy stuff and just not really into modern fantasy and sci-fi at that point. I was doing a lot of litfic and
Mm.
classics and I was throwing myself headlong into darker, gritty things. And I think it was part of like me feeling like I wanted to understand the world and understand all the dark corners of humanity. But now I find like I kind of get the picture of all that, and I want to transcend the world a little bit more and
Yeah, I know what you mean.
transcend my depressing mundane reality and have a little bit of escapist fun, but also some heroic cathartic transcendence. Like I just read an awesome trilogy where it's by Connor Golden,
Mm.
and it was great. It was just uh, pretty gritty. Definitely some dark things were happening, but there was this undercurrent of nobility and grace among a lot of the characters,
Mm.
and just kind of really awesome, kind of heroic things going on, and that really stirs my kind of emotions and makes me, I think, have some more hope or just warm feelings towards existence that if I wasn't reading fantasy and sci-fi these days, that it'd be hard to come by.
Speaking of audiobooks, I also have heard Jeremy Irons read Lolita, which was great. I enjoy
I
I enjoy
I
his
did
reading a lot.
I have listened to the sample. I've seen him in a few things. I think he's an amazing actor, so I'm sure that's a great choice. I read Lolita back when I was a senior in high school. In
Oh yeah,
my
how'd,
my
how'd that go?
and it was great. Like that was the kind of book that I was just craving back then. Like oh, here's one of the literary classics of Western literature, and Nabokov like supposed to be a genius, and then I read it, and it was like whoa, this is like so voice filled and unlike anything I'd read before, for school or anything like that. So no, it was great. I wasn't into audiobooks then, so it didn't even occur to me to look for the audio, but
Uh,
I I loved that one. That's the only Nabokov I've read.
Yeah, same
And
here. I'm kind
yeah,
of intimidated to check out any
yeah,
Marvel book,
yeah.
but I did read My Dark Vanessa recently. It's got me fired up to read some more Nabokov in the future. So, maybe in the
Oh,
near
okay,
future,
okay.
maybe I'll try something else, but I don't know
So
where.
where one thing I wanted to ask you today and explore a little bit is like where are you in your reading journey kind of? So I've kind of told you about how like I well, as a kid I loved fantasy and Harry Potter, but then as I grew up, as through my teenage years, I kind of thought I had to be more intellectually serious and read more lit fic and classics, and uh stayed away from adult fantasy, modern sci-fi for a long while until my friend basically got me to try Mistborn, and then I was like, oh my god, there's a reason I love this stuff as a kid. Like I'm missing out, and I've basically been sticking to historical fiction, fantasy, sci-fi for the last like 6 years, um, and I've been loving it and not really craving even to go back much to the lit fic side of things. But where are you right now in your reading journey, and kind of what's drawing you to pick up certain things or certain genres, or do you feel yourself just kind of floating around, enjoying anything and everything?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask that. I would say where I'm at is I am well, I heard the advice once, read a lot and read widely. So that's what I'm trying to do. And it's also one of the reasons I started up my channel again, because there were books I was reading and people weren't really covering them. And it was kind of annoying. So I just I went on YouTube and just started. I'm like, all right, I'll just do
Yeah.
it. And then again, Brian Lee Durfee, man, that God bless that man. He, I'm like, if that man can get on his phone, his little rinky dink iPhone, and record himself just, going off about
Yeah,
books. Well, I have no excuse whatsoever.
yeah, yeah. With his camera constantly zooming in and out.
Yeah. I
Oh
mean, I don't know
man,
if I have the I don't
yeah.
know if I have the sheer force of his personality, but I'm really trying here. It's been
No, it's great. Like, yeah, it's nice to get our opinion out there, get our passion out there, and helps us find other people who share all that and want to chat. And like this type of chat's why I started a booktube channel. I had been lurking for years and years on booktube just as a commenter, and finally like, oh, it might be fun to get involved in some of these chats and my reads, keep on almost like reading journal. I've been so busy that I haven't been able to make as many actual book videos as I would like, but I do like wrap ups where I could just kind of keep a journal, a video journal of my reading. Even just
yeah,
that's all I did, I would have a nice time.
yeah, I'm the same way, except I tend to wait till the months are over, and I do like I know they're called wrap ups. I just call them what I read.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
I'm
Do
like,
your
all
own
right,
thing. Yeah, no reason to conform to whatever
I'm like,
the booktube.
but I'm not
Yeah.
trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, here's what it's also just for me to keep up with what I've read, and yeah, I mean, February was interesting month because I only completed about 2 books, and I started watching like TV again. Like I started the new True Detective season, and then I'm like, well, this is not great, so I'll just put that down. And I caught up on Rick and Morty, so I still need to finish the 7th season of that.
Oh, okay. Never watched any of that, but I did see you post something on Twitter about James Gandolfini. Have you watched any of The Sopranos recently?
Yeah, I was rewatching it a little bit recently, and man, yeah, what a loss.
I almost don't. Yeah, I almost don't want to go back and rewatch because, like, you know, having lost James Gandolfini at his young age, it's like so depressing to me. Like the same thing with like Philip Seymour Hoffman. I've seen almost everything and that he's done except for like The Master, one of his last big leading roles, and I almost like don't want to watch it because it's like the last thing I'll be seeing him in.
It's a fantastic one. I mean, one of
Oh
his best,
yeah,
if you ask
yeah.
me. But
Oh man.
I'm pretty biased there.
I yeah, I really love those actors who I think are just they were something truly special, just like a cut above, and brought something so deep and especially to really hard roles, complicated, nuanced roles, and seemed like they were a bit tortured individuals, like
Mhm.
almost man.
I mean, we
it's
still have
so
like
sad.
Bryan
So sad.
Cranston and Michael Chiklis, so I say we're doing pretty good. we're
Yeah.
doing okay.
But I love The Sopranos. That was just a one of a kind show.
Yeah, it was interesting when
So
I
good.
first saw it. Like I kind of because I was a big fan of like gangster stuff, and I was like really into the gangster stuff. Like as I've grown older, like the family dramas, like more like kind of it's grown on me than it did when I initially watched it.
Oh, okay. If you're into that kind of stuff, family drama, gangster stuff, there was a recent one I did because it seemed like it might have been inspired by the Greenbone saga. I don't know if it was, but
Mm.
the brothers son on Netflix with Michelle Yeoh just came out like a couple months ago. It was really enjoyable. Not like as serious and gritty as The Sopranos. It has like a somewhat of a humorous kind of tone to it, like minor, just every now and then. So it keeps it a little bit lighter, but really really cool. Like about these Taiwanese gangsters and coming to LA, and uh, it was really really. I felt like it was like a real life version of the Greenbone saga without any of the jade magic, which
Yeah,
was a
I
shame.
still need to read that. I saw Tori talk to her the other day, and I was like, oh, man, that's neat.
Yeah.
I had a friend. His name's Josh, whose show Just Joshing actually inspired my show, Britton. Well, one of them. There was a couple of podcasts I was kind of cribbing from, like I don't want to. This is probably. I'll admit I don't watch a lot of Joe Rogan, but his style I really like. So I don't go too out there with the wacky ideas like he does, but I like his kind of. I just sit down. I'm having a conversation like we're doing right now. So there
Mhm.
we go. A lot of the
Yeah,
time
yeah,
about
nice.
books. I have a couple recorded. I'm looking forward to putting up.
All right, so I got a sense that in terms of your reading journey, you're just kind of in this place of reading widely. I was in the same spot, kind of at your age, just in college, just doing a lot of everything, nonfiction, learning about all sorts of stuff in classes, and uh, just picking up random stuff at the library. I, my reading habit was so private back then. Like I was not looking online for recommendations. I was just stumbling into things. I was just it was so different than right now, where almost everything I read, I've heard about for probably years, or built up huge expectations, or seen reviews and discussions about it. Like it's so different, and I do miss kind of the more like private reading life that I had before. But interestingly, just uh, read by Kyle asked me to do a buddy read of this series, the Empire of Salt trilogy
Oh
by
yeah.
Connie Golden, and it came out from like 2017 to 2019, and I had never heard a single word about this. I didn't know it existed before he asked me to read it with him, and I had not read a single word about it, not heard a single thing. Went in completely blind, not knowing anything, and was so surprised and just loved that I had no expectations, had no clue what it was about, what kind of tone and atmosphere it was. Like that was cool. It was refreshing. It was probably the first time in like a bunch of years that I read something I didn't know anything about. So I kind of missed that. That was really cool. But then again, I've also read so many amazing things that have been just on my TBR that I had high expectations for, and so I don't think I would trade my situation for like my old one. But it is a weird change that has some trade offs. But curious, were any of your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of in that because I grew up. I read like the Magic Tree House, and I read like I read the illustrated classics for some reason. I really like the illustrations, and then I would read the stories. I'm like, oh, those are pretty good too, and that's kind of where that started. And like I was in when I was like in middle school, high school, maybe I was kind of, or like middle school, maybe like I don't remember exactly, but I kind of read. I started with fantasy, and I fell in love with fantasy and what it could be. I read like Lord of the Rings, and also Game of Thrones. That really changed my life in a lot of ways, at least fantasy wise. Like that's a book, or maybe it's a video that I should make at some point. Books that have changed my
Ooh.
life.
Wait,
But,
you mean just the first book or the whole thing?
whole thing. Yeah, it was. I had never read. Well, to be fair, and I also read like Harry Potter, and like I finally caught up with the Harry Potter hype, and I'm like, oh, this
Mhm.
is actually pretty good. What was I doing all this time? And, I'm still, there's some of the people who are like, yeah, it's not as good. And I'm like, I'm one of those people who's like, no, it's good. I'm still in that band. I enjoy Harry Potter
Yeah. No,
thoroughly.
I grew up with it, so it was just like part of my identity growing up and rereading them and growing old with the crew. I read the last book it released the summer right after I graduated high school. It was like the end of my childhood. It was this real transitional moment that I read that. Yeah, that was
You
really
know,
intense.
it was funny. We had our chat on my podcast, and we were talking about Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, oh yeah, I followed you on Goodreads, and you gave it like a 1 star. I'm like, oh my god, man. Like from our conversation, I thought
that's
like you had like a
that's
healthy respect for it at least. My god, what
yeah,
happened?
yeah, that's interesting. A very unique situation, and I will return to the books, but I will explain what happened with that. I
Did you watch the
adored
movies?
the movies growing up. Like they released when I was like a teenager over the course of, a bunch of years, and I adored them. I loved them. I got them on DVD and would watch them at home and saw them in the theaters and then we'll rewatch them. So I loved the story, but really was heavily attached. Like I'd read The Hobbit actually as a kid like that. Probably tried Fellowship of the Ring at some young age, and I stopped in with Tom Bombadil because I was just not engaged in that book.
Yeah,
And
Bombadil's
and
interesting.
but I picked it up when I was too young anyway, I think. And then I watched the movies and fell in love with them. Like really, just
Yeah, I mean,
fell in
it's
love.
interesting
And
how the movies have just influenced how they're influenced. I mean, they're great films. I enjoy them all. Um, it actually got me to read the books, though. I won't pretend it's an easy read. I mean, it's much older and it's very like there's a lot of scenery porn because
yeah,
because Tolkien loves nature and
yeah, I don't think I was in the mood for that when I picked those. When I picked the Fellowship of the Ring up again, I had been steeped in like modern, fast-paced fantasy. So like I'd read a whole bunch of Sanderson Cosmere stuff and Dresden Files, Naomi Novik's Temeraire and Magician's Trilogy, John Gwynn's Faithful and the Fallen, Rhaenyra Revelations. So a lot of like fast-paced, very
mhm.
modern, accessible prose style stuff. And then I was like, all right, let me go back to the granddaddy of modern fantasy. And I just was impatient. I just could not get immersed in it. I felt just bored because I had already like
Ow.
my sense of the story was from the movies, and like I just wasn't getting that same experience reading the book. And so I rated that on Goodreads based on my actual just like emotional enjoyment of that reading experience, not at all about my intellectual appreciation of it, which is extreme. And I will, when I'm in more of that mood, then I know what the books are like now. I will go back to them and re-rate Fellowship of the Ring.
Like, I
But
will admit,
yeah,
there is a lot of filler in Lord of the Rings. Like, well, I mean, I bet there's going to be some people who might not agree with that, and that's fine.
I mean, no, Fellowship of the Ring. I only read Fellowship of the Ring when I rated it,
but yeah, there's a
and
lot of moseying around,
it's a
and
lot
I
of
mean,
just
it
like
makes sense.
getting
It's a long journey.
getting to the next destination on this journey, and I was just impatient to like get to their more important destinations that I knew they were heading toward, and just you know it, for that story, I think you want to just be able to sink in to the elegance of the writing and just not rush it. And I was reading it all wrong, very much like against the text I was pushing. So uh, yeah, I love the story, and certainly the movies are near and dear to my heart, and that's
Oh
mostly
no, yeah,
from
they're fantastic films.
Tolkien's. So I I will return to Lord of the Rings as the
I mean,
books
if you don't really
when I'm
feel
ready for
like
them.
reading the books and you want to just get the story more streamlined, you can watch the films. You'll have a good time. They're great adaptations. I mean, and the stuff they cut out is, well, they don't break. I mean, I saw the films first, so I mean, they definitely don't break the experience for me. But
Yeah.
but I think they're, um, yeah, it was interesting. I've seen people who don't like Lord of the Rings, which is always interesting. Um, um, I mean, I'm a huge nerd. If you didn't gather, because we run booktube channels. I don't only just like reading the books. I like reading like the history about it and like how people talk about these books and like because there's a lot of I've talked about this idea a few times on my channel. I've got like Philip Chase and a couple people on and
Mhm.
we've discussed this idea, but I kind of view literature as like a conversation in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, if you notice, I'm really fascinated by that for some reason. I don't know why. I just am.
No, that's interesting. I I don't know if you've read any Sun Eater yet by Christopher Rocchio,
Not
but
yet. That's funny. I do this show called "What's the Big Fuss."
yeah.
I've actually been stalled on doing my second episode because just life has gotten in the way. But first episode, one of the votes was the Sun Eater, and I thought it was gonna win, but well, there was like Wheel of Time, there was Arbonne.
Song
Um,
for Our Bone? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right
I
there.
just read it. I just read it.
Um,
Loved it.
uh, Fourth Wing, which won, and another book which I cannot.
Oh no.
Um,
You had to read Fourth Wing instead of Empire of Silence or A Song for Our Bone?
well, the thing is, if I wasn't digging it, I was just gonna drop it and be like, "Well, I tried." And that's what happened with Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
That poor book was doomed from the start.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't think I'm
Oh
like
man,
I ain't gonna
you
finish this.
you almost got to read one of the greatest things ever written. I just read this month
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. I think you
I
actually
was
voted.
blown away.
I think you actually you tossed in a comment. You said I think you were the one who went for Empire of Silence. I thought either that or
Yeah.
Wheel of Time was gonna win. No, you're
Yeah, yeah.
like you
People
must
just wanna
suffer.
people wanna troll with that sort of stuff. But so I brought Sun Eater up because I feel like I've been watching possibly like the birth of the the public conversation around Sun Eater over the last year.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, it came on my radar because of Mike's book reviews. Started talking about it a few years ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. They're like
then
friends now. It's crazy.
yeah, he's had him on the channel a lot. They love talking about Dune because they're both Dune fanatics, and so I eventually picked it up. I saw a couple other people in my circle like it, like Jake Bishop really loved it. So I'm like, okay, my taste really aligns with his. I'll give it a go. And then I fell in love. I read the first four books that were out, yeah, at the time, and then man, love them so much. Like some of them are the best, like my favorite books I've ever read in my life. Like Demon of White, especially. Just
Yeah,
oh my god,
I'm
it's
hoping to
incredible.
read that
Um,
at some point.
but it didn't break out, and I felt like it could have wide appeal, like a like if Dune became such a massive, huge bestseller for decades and decades, one of the best-selling books in speculative fiction ever, and Name of the Wind and as a chronicling tale and fantasy became this huge seller. I'm like Sun Eater kind of marries those two kind of styles, like the world building style and genre of Dune, and kind of the chronicling tale of uh, Name of the Wind. And so I'm like, this is popular. Like this stuff is popular. I feel like this could have a gigantic readership, and that Rocchio could be a genius writer and a prodigy because he wrote Empire of Silence like right out of college. And
I've
so
heard
like, oh
this.
yeah, and
It is
uh,
no.
and so I was really getting the feeling like this is like just like an unknown writing prodigy where like he's gonna just not be discovered by the wider public for some reason. And his publisher, I think, did very little marketing, didn't really care about him, and he ended up leaving Daw for Bane, where he ended up working. Oh, we got Kindles and Kicks coming up. Sun Eater's remarkable, yeah,
Oh, my boy,
and
Darko.
and
I was just
then
talking about you not too long ago.
and then
Darko
just
Kindred.
a few months ago, Petrick reads it and posts some rave reviews,
Gets
and he
blurred.
has so many followers on Goodreads and YouTube. And so, like, if something hits the Petrick hype train, like, it's going to reach a lot of people. And then nearly at the same time, Daniel Green reads it, and
Yeah.
basically, it becomes Daniel Green's like return to book reviewing. He's like, I'm getting my channel back to more of the basics of how I started. Going to do more book reviews, and getting just discuss books the way I used to and what I love doing. And he just started reviewing all the Sun Eater books, and then it just like blew up in terms of like the people talking about it, and it's kind of like name awareness. And then so like I feel like I've been witnessing the birth of the kind of literary conversation around Sun Eater, and I
Yeah,
was kind of
yeah.
in it before that happened. And then I feel like it could become a classic of our time, although I don't know if because of the proliferation of the sheer number of stuff that gets published between TradPub and SelfPub these days. I don't, and the kind of kind of niches that everyone kind of has now around what art they consume and books they consume. I don't know that anything's gonna break out ever like Lord of the Rings did or Dune did, but I
Yeah,
do
I
think
mean,
I do think Sun Eater could be treasured maybe as like a cult classic, kind of like Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun, like that. It's even decades after it was written,
oh yeah, that
still
one.
kind of read and talked about. I feel like Sun Eater will at least maintain a very strong kind of cult following for hopefully the rest of my life. So I'll be curious to just track that and how it builds, and if there will ever be like a movie or TV adaptation, it could even blow up even more.
Yeah, we can be those guys who are like, I was there first, or I'm not doing that.
Oh yeah, that was one of the ones Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews
I'm kind of surprised
started
you
reading
like
it.
that, because it didn't seem like something he would dig. I don't know, a bit more.
Yeah, he often said like last year early on in his channel that he didn't really read much sci-fi, but then he like tried more sci-fantasy stuff, and even like Cixin Liu's Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy. So he just hadn't read enough, I think, really good, engaging sci-fi yet. But man, it's so good. Like Sun Eater, I'm actually reading the novella, the most recent novella, because the next book in the series is going to be released next month. So I'm doing some Sun Eater short fiction to get back in the world, back in the
Yeah,
Rakio vibe
I
and
saw a
mood.
cover. It's like a dude with a literal like lightsaber. I'm like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
okay, really, really going for the Star Wars look.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The high matter swords. No, they're a great touch. Like I love that. Like he set something like Dune like so far into the future where it's like you'd feel like people's weapons technology would be so advanced that they wouldn't be using like swords and things like that. But using things like shields, like Dune used projectile shields and things like. There's cool things authors can do to get creative to like keep weaponry and fighting, more in like the medieval mold where it's really just awesome and more fun to read on the page usually.
Yeah, if I remember right, you can't like shoot bullets at the like shields or whatever the hell they're called, because like if you do, like it'll blow up. I don't. It's been a while since I read Dune, because, and it's funny. You were talking about Lord of the Rings. I had a similar experience with Dune. It just didn't jive with me.
Yeah, I could see that. It didn't blow me away when I read it.
It's
Right
not
before.
necessarily. I don't
Yeah.
really have the like. Oh, it's probably because it's old. Like that. Oh, it might just be. I'm not used to like I'm not. I mentioned I read Lolita. So I can read slow literature. Though I don't know if Lolita's slow, but whatever.
No, I could see this. Like I liked it, but I didn't actually love it as much as I thought I would. I read it just before the first movie came out, and I just never got really immersed in the way that I really love to, where I'm just kind of like dissociating from myself really, and just like lost in the POVs. Like it's not really like close psychological distance in the POVs. It's a little more omniscient, and just that style is a little more distancing, I think. But I didn't find a lot of the characters too compelling, or even the plotting overly suspenseful and compelling, or the
Yeah,
world
yeah, yeah.
building. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, I think Harkonnen's just, oh my good lord, he's just disgusting, fat,
yeah,
pederast, like more,
yeah,
more. He has to like float on his. He has like a thing on his spine to
yeah,
float. You're like, oh my god, no, I can't do this. But
yeah. I wasn't the biggest fan
I
of
mean,
that either.
like with Lord of the Rings, like there's like you're in the Shire, it's a pleasant time, or at least it was to me. You know, it's yeah, it's interesting how the older books are, and I find it interesting that Dune is Mike's favorite book because he seems to like that more fast paced stuff. Which again, nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
that, but
Although the things you read, growing up, like that's a personal touchstone book for him. Where I've heard him talk about, he's read it just so many times and just throughout his childhood, and just I think it was just a really personally important book, and like things that you read younger, or movies you watch when you're young, like and they leave a huge impact, and like they're almost this part of your life when you come back and reread or rewatch them, and it's yeah, it's different than if you're like, approaching Dune now, like I did, where I didn't have any nostalgia for the story, and I'd been reading tons of other stuff that I'd been loving, and uh, so yeah, if Mike had never read Dune, but then just read it now, like I'd probably bet he wouldn't love it nearly as much. But yeah, Kindles and Kicks thinks it's nostalgia.
it might be. I don't know. I don't really like that argument because it's just kind of like, it's like if
Yeah.
there's a great book for me, there has to be something that's memorable about it. It's not just nostalgia from, or at least that's how I think. I,
Well, not
I might just
necessarily
be,
just
I just might
nostalgia, but
be, I might just
yeah.
be being stubborn, but
But when you read that and love it, there might have been things about it at that time that it was just like a perfect read for you, and then you form that nostalgia because it was such an awesome experience at one point in your life, and then you know at a later point in your life you're different. The things you like to read or watch are different, and but things you've already have attachments to, like even if they're different than what you now prefer, I think you're still gonna love them because of that almost nostalgia factor. Just a little extra. Because I agree with Kindles and Kicks here. Like I grew up with Harry Potter, favorite series of all time. A lot of it's nostalgia. Like yeah, if I had never read it growing up, and I came to it now, like I think I would not get nearly as invested in that story as I did
I mean,
the first
maybe
time
I try
through.
not to knock things.
Yeah.
Be careful, Ben. Always be open minded.
That's
But
great. It's great. It's great how open-minded you are.
I try. I
But
try. There's some
and
books I've read that are just like they just don't do it for me. Like what's a classic I read I didn't care for? Uh well, Catcher in the Rye, I didn't really care for that book. That's a
yeah,
that's one I like to pick
yeah,
on a lot. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just kind of
yeah. That's
it just did
that's one
nothing for me.
that's one where the more you learn about the author and his biography, like I've actually I've read a good amount about J.D. Salinger from various perspectives, and the more you learn about his really creepy life, um, then
God, I
the
gotta check
worse
this out.
kind of Catcher in the Rye comes off, because it almost seems like he's inserting himself in there as Holden, but trying to uh, I don't know, like justify some of his weird predilections. But
I I think it's interesting. I mean, there's some stuff about Catcher in the Rye that I appreciate. I think that Holden Caulfield is well, I don't know if a sympathetic is the right word, but he is certainly pitiable in a lot of ways because like I do understand like growing up it's not always fun and is wanting to like he wants to preserve innocence in other people even though he's
yeah,
not really innocent even though like he's in this mixture of kind of jaded outsider and but there's also like this innocence to him but again I just wasn't really I just didn't really a lot of it kind of felt whiny to be honest.
yeah, yeah.
But at
No,
the
it
same time
it
I'm like I've been there
it
like,
did,
I've been there
and
sometimes.
a lot of it felt like Holden was also condescending towards other people. All every like calling everyone phonies, and as if he himself, doesn't have some hypocrisy or contradictions, or that he's always being honest and truthful. And I knowing about J.D. Salinger, I do feel like Salinger had major hypocrisy and blind spots, and that this book was just a really interesting window into his own psychology.
I mean, I don't know. I it was just yeah, that's an interesting book. What's another like book I don't? Well, I mean, let me think. Let me look up my Goodreads real quick. I'm gonna look on the disappointments.
I mean, with disappointments, I try to steer away from making objective kind of analysis.
Well, I'm not trying to be objective.
We talked about that.
My
it's like
opinion.
I'm confident. I'm confident when I give a 1-star or 2-star rating to a book, because I'm basing that solely on, was I gripped? Was I engaged? Did I care about how the story was playing out? Did I care about any of the characters? Did I feel like it had, worked its way into my soul at all and changed my existence, or was it a waste of my time? Like, I try to go based off of the feeling of the experience rather than any kind of intellectual kind of analysis of the book. And so I feel very confident, because that is almost an objective kind of analysis of my own kind of reaction, like bodily and emotional reaction.
Well, so, like, no, I'm not trying to make objective like arguments here. I get that. I'm not, I'm not trying to be like, no, this is the right way. I don't.
No, but that's why I'm almost saying, like, feel free to. I feel like you should go for it when you feel negatively towards a read or a book. Embrace that, and it's okay. And I really enjoy hearing people gushing positively of books, but also the opposite and ranting, and just seeing what doesn't work for them is always interesting.
Yeah, that's another one I didn't really like. The Scarlet Letter. That was yeah,
one of my least favorite high school reads for sure.
It's and it's weird because like the story in there is not bad, but it's the oh my gosh, it's the language in that is so.
Yeah,
Dick's another one I go back and forth on. I might actually need to read that again. I'm older now. See where that goes, but
yeah, that was an interesting one. I was intermittently engaged during Moby Dick and felt like there were some sections I was really into, and others that were more boring, or some of the thematic stuff or language was a little impenetrable at times.
The Handmaid's Tale. I remember not liking that when I read it.
Ooh, I tried to read that once and then put that down. Did not
that's an interesting one. I've gotten some flack from people, and like that's another one I want to read again to see if my mind changes, because I did read her book, Orcs and Craig, which I thought was fantastic. But it's just what I thought the world was kind of absurd, but then I was kind of I watch the news nowadays, and I'm like, well, maybe.
yeah, no, the world is definitely stranger than fiction.
It didn't hit me in the same way like a 1984 or a Brave New World hit me.
Yeah. I read both of those actually in high school, and I loved both of those. Those were so thought-provoking.
And also, it's like it's the feminine experience, and I'm a guy, and I won't pretend. Now I get that the human condition is a universal thing, but maybe it was just my experience is not a woman's experience. I wasn't really jiving with that. I don't know, but it for some reason I just was not jiving with The Handmaid's Tale.
Kindles and Kicks was not jiving with Hyperion, which that's interesting. That one is like
this year
takes a very different approach than most novels do. It's like Canterbury Tales-esque series of kind of short stories or tales that each of these characters are telling on their journey. And it's definitely like a little bit like literary. It has a lot of allusions to things like John Keats. When I read that, like I've never read poetry really, or like all those references are kind of over my head, or things I don't really care about. I liked that duology, but then I tried Dan Simmons' Ilium, and that was a pretty quick DNF. Just could not get into it at all.
I'm actually hoping to read Hyperion sometime this year. I don't know when I'm going to do it, maybe May. But I try not to set a explicit TBR. I'll be like, here's some books I hope to read by this time. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but like in March, I'm really hoping to get to the Sharp's Tiger I was showing you earlier. I did just recently get The Way of a Dan from Dr. Philip Chase, which I'm hoping to get into. Oh, there's the thumbs up right there. I'm hoping to get to The Way of a Dan because I've been looking forward to read that one. And also,
Yeah, me too. Me too. I want to try that too. I almost do everything with print and audio. I like, holding the book, but I also like listening to the audio. So I've been waiting, but Alan is from Library of Alexandria is doing the audiobook, but he's been taking a really, really long time. And I have to say, I've heard a clip and he's great in it, like the performance he's doing. But
I was about to say, aren't you friendly with Alan?
Well, yeah, I've gone on his channel and
I saw you on his channel a while.
I've been watching him for years, but like it was so weird listening to just a clip of that he sent out because I was like not able to like try to visualize the scene, or I was just seeing him reading it. I was like imagining him in his house like at a microphone recording it, and so it was not like the kind of immersive experience I really want. So I don't know if I'm gonna wait for the audio now because I don't know that I'm gonna be able to stop thinking about it's Alan narrating this story to me.
I mean, when I dislike a book, I try to be like, you know what, I try to do well, what a lot of people do. Sadly, I'm not Jordan from iWizard who can just go up and be like, art is objective after all. I can't bring myself to do that. At least not yet, anyway. I don't know yeah. But it's mine is just like this is. I always try to make it clear. This is what I'm thinking. You don't have to think this way. But I try not to go say in my opinion a bunch because that kind of bugs me when people do that. I'm like, yeah, I get that it's your opinion. That's why I'm watching the video.
Yeah. Although there is something to be said for those types of qualifiers, because I do think even if people do kind of acknowledge that it's their subjective opinion, I think a lot of the time, at least with me, and I think with others, that we're also kind of convinced that our opinion is kind of like in accord with the objective quality of the book as well. Like, so I do appreciate. I also, like you, I get annoyed if people are constantly saying like, in my opinion, or just according to me, like, because I feel like I understand, but I'm worried that other people might not always get that. So I have conflicting thoughts about that. But it's really weird because I feel like I am often tapping into like feelings of objective quality. Like, man, this, like, for instance, with the end of the Lightbringer series, a lot of people were fans of the first couple books, first 3 books. I was a fan of the first 3 books. And then the 5th book came out, and I've never seen anything like it actually in the modern fantasy community about like the percentage of people that ended up hating that and reviling the ending, the whole 5th book, going back and hating the 4th book. And so like a majority of the fans of this writer and the style and the whole series against this point ended up really hating this 5th book. And you feel like at that point, is everyone kind of the wisdom of the crowds almost like tapping into some sense that there are some things wrong that, and maybe it's not objective quality of tapping into, but
I mean, there's some
more
books
just like
that are popular for a reason. I mean, I read the first law. I read the first law. I finished the first trilogy anyway last year. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think it's,
and it seems like most people who read it end up really loving it. And so it's like with the wisdom of crowds thing. That is the title of his last book too. Like, does that kind of tap into, what could have some objective merits, but maybe not. And I don't think it does. But what I do think it's tapping into is that people who are fans of a certain genre or storytelling style and are expecting certain things like that, appeal to them, like personality-filled characters and wit and humor and gritty action, and the combination of that is pretty unique in modern fantasy. And so you read First Law and it's like, wow, this is jumping off the page. It's so vivid and engaging. And maybe it's not objective quality, but for a subgroup of people, it's tapping into the kind of subjective experience that we want to be having. And I think that can give the illusion of objective quality.
Maybe I don't know. I've kind of, I mean, I'll talk to I talked to Jordan, and like he made a pretty convincing argument, and then I'll talk to somebody else, and then they make a really they make a very convincing argument. So I mean, I don't think truth is just something to, I don't think truth is something that's like up in the air. I do think there's like how science is. That's what science is all about. I mean,
Yeah.
but when it comes to like literature, it's different because people are different.
Yeah. And literature and art is so multifaceted. It's so personal. It's not something that's clear cut. And well, this is an interesting question about the reaction to the finale of Lightbringer. So I will say, I read that before I was enmeshed in any kind of online community, and I was kind of reading the 5 books of Lightbringer like in kind of isolation, and I despised the 5th book so much. I was like, that's what actually got me to become more active in like, I was searching at Discords, like, how are other people reacting to this? Was this just a solo experience I had? And then a lot of people shared it. And because what happened in the 5th book is that there was like a literal Deus Ex Machina that kind of came out of the sky in Lightbringer 5, and it became an actual Christian allegory.
Carefully, I've learned.
Yeah, like a literal Deus, like a literal God out of the sky appearing and like fixing everything, and completely changing the ending of the whole series, and making the whole series a Christian allegory. Like not even just like vaguely religious, like Christian overtones, but like an actual Christian allegory, like direct, like real world Christian, even though it's a secondary world fantasy. Nothing up to this point would have led you to believe that like this was going to be a Christian allegorical story. And that like a few things like that, I think, made this not an actual mob mentality thing, but a situation where nobody could believe how off the rails the finale went. And then being able to rant about it together probably made it worse.
It was like when I read The Republic of Thieves, like there was like first like maybe 100 pages are pretty good. Like it's a great hook. But then suddenly they put in the most blatant Deus Ex Machina you will ever see in a book, and I was just like, oh no. Lynch.
But it probably wasn't a literal like Deus, God.
No, it wasn't a god.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was just, I mean, I know like it means like, I think it means like God of the machine or something in Latin. But
yeah, it used to come out of the sky.
He's just like, oh, we'll heal you if you do this for us. And I'm like, there's so many ways you could have done that. What a missed opportunity. Oh.
Wait, you're talking of Gentleman Bastards book 3?
Yeah.
Oh, that's another one
it boggled my head a little bit.
TBR veteran of mine. So I actually did not like Lies of Locke Lamora. I just can never get into that book. But then I loved Red Seas Under Red Skies. So this is rare for me because usually I'm either like all in on a series from the beginning or kind of just out from the beginning. I rarely had these different experiences with different books, but I took like a couple year break between them. I loved Red Seas Under Red Skies. And I see Lynch kind of getting more out there on social media. I think he's going to start releasing some of his new books or novellas, and maybe book 4 soon. So I'm going to give book 3 a try once new material seems to be on the way.
I mean, I hope so. I really enjoyed those first 2 books. I mean, I like the first one a lot more than it seems you did. But I think that Red Seas is also a fantastic book. But I know
the Deus Ex Machina bothered you. I also get bothered when I feel like I can feel like the author
bothers me.
I feel the author is the puppeteer, holding the strings of the marionettes. Like I don't want to feel that. Like I want to suspend my disbelief and feel like this is really happening in this world, that it's not contrived by the author. And so things that feel like a real author contrivance do bother me a lot. So I'm with you on that.
It's there's this film called The Prestige, which is hello Derry.
I've seen it. Hey Derry.
Prestige. Fantastic movie. I think it's one of Nolan's best films.
Loved it. Yeah,
underrated film too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Dark Knight for Life. Yeah. It was like Lord of the Rings for you. Grew up with that film, even though
I love Dark Knight too.
even though I should not have seen it at the age I saw it at. But you know,
Oh my
it is
god,
what
I
it is.
love Dark Knight. That's the
Um,
only actual like superhero movie from like the last 20 years that I really like.
it's my favorite superhero film of all time. Like it's not even a competition. Like
But I'm not a big fan of superhero movies at all.
oh
But
yeah.
that's the one that I was like, oh, this is worthwhile. Like,
Yeah, no,
man.
I hear you. I mean, I like comics, so I like superheroes, but whatever. I'm getting off topic here. There's a
Oh, we were
scene
talking about
in
the Prestige.
there's this The Prestige is my favorite non-superhero Nolan film that he's done.
Hmm.
There's a scene where Michael Caine, I think it's at the very beginning of the movie, or either beginning or the very end. He's explaining to a girl how magic works. Magic,
Yeah.
illusions,
Yeah.
and he's going.
Yeah.
The trick is the people want to be tricked.
Yes.
You lure them into this, and that's kind of, and I'm like, that's perfect. Like that's how I describe what I want when I'm reading a book. I know consciously this is a mostly fictional story. I've read some nonfiction books, but I want to be tricked. I don't want to know that I'm being tricked. Once I know that I'm being tricked, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. I'm with you. I want to.
That sounded
suspend
way
my
more
disbelief.
elegant in my head than it did.
No, you're elegant. Yeah, I love those Nolan Batman movies too. Man, he got some great got some great actors in those. Just
I
delivery.
do love Tom Hardy a lot. I think what's the yeah, he was Bane. He was great. It was a lot. I mean, blew the other Bane from Batman and Robin out of the water. I have to admit.
Yeah, the '90s Batman films were a little campy.
Yeah.
They were.
I actually have a guilty pleasure for Batman and Robin. I mean, it's a dumb movie. I think it's a bad film, but like,
that's the one in Mr. Freeze
I
as
have a
Arnold
lot of fun with
Schwarzenegger.
that one. Like
That's Arnold. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think
oh, yeah.
I saw that in the theater as a
Oh,
kid.
wow.
Man,
But
I have a soft spot for those goofy '90s ones.
But yeah, no.
What is this? Is that Oh no, I haven't seen that.
I've heard of that one. Isn't that the one where he plays the two brothers? I think, if I remember right.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's probably really good. Probably really good.
Tom Hardy's great.
Man, I loved Tom Hardy in Dunkirk. Dunkirk.
Oh yeah.
I've always really loved like gritty war films, and man, Dunkirk's one of my favorites.
Yeah, Dunkirk was good.
Really loved it.
Then he put out Tenet. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. And to be honest,
that's the one Nolan I have not seen.
To do.
That's the one Nolan I have not seen. The only one.
Has some of his best action sequences that I've.
Ooh, I gotta see it just for that, because his creativity, like from Inception, like there's nothing like it when he's let loose, when his creativity's let loose. So I gotta see it just for
going back to my point. It's like I want to be tricked when I'm reading a book. Like,
yep.
It's it's kind of how I.
Yeah, I don't want those Deus Ex Machinas. I want to feel like.
Or at least if a natural Deus Ex Machina happens, I want it to feel natural to the story.
Yes, natural to the world building, to maybe some of the characters and their kind of actions that they take feel kind of natural. Or I often like when things are unpredictable, but that they felt inevitable in retrospect. Like, yeah, this felt natural for the characters or for the world building or for the plot to kind of go in this direction. Yeah, I don't want to feel that author string pulling. I've been reading Realm of the Elderlings. And
I still need to get to that.
That's one of Derry's favorite things. And I've been loving the Rainwald Chronicles, actually. But for the first time in a long time, reading that series, in the third book of the Rainwald Chronicles, which was City of Dragons, I felt an author string pulling moment where this character was just left out in the rain for no good reason when they were very pregnant and about to give birth, and got into a very dangerous situation because they were all alone. And there was just not a good justification for them to be left alone there. And it led to this extremely overly dramatic situation.
Oh no.
That I was like, man, I'm not really immersed in this right now. I'm not loving this because this felt like an author string pull kind of situation. And I like things. I wish Cobb just had found a way there to make it just, get her into the character into the situation just a little bit more organically within the story for it to make more sense.
I mean, kind of going back to the Locke Lamora books, I guess what was kind of disappointing, what made that whole bit in book 3 even more disappointing to me, is that the whole thing of the Gentleman Bastards books are John and Locke get themselves, they're clever, they're good at what they do, but they get themselves into something. How are they going to get out of it?
Yeah,
That's what makes them tick. And
yeah.
I heard that Lynch was going through like some like mental health like he was going through a divorce or something like
Hmm.
that. And it shows like his heart was not in
Uh,
it. His art,
oh,
his heart was
really?
not in it, or at least I don't think it was. And,
Yeah, I feel like that is the general reaction to that book, is that it is a step down from the first two. And so I think a lot of people are picking up on that sort of thing, that maybe doesn't have that same heart or energy in it from the other. Because the second book is just like pulsing with wit and clever situations that,
oh yeah,
we they get out
Perfect.
of,
I mean, my God.
just I loved all of the cleverness and the scheming and how they played out, and the non-linear kind of storytelling structure of, doing some flashbacks, but really strategically deploying them, and jumping ahead so the reader doesn't know certain things that would be like, so we don't know exactly how their plans are going to play out. Um, Although sometimes I will say I do like being in on the characters' plans. So sometimes, so I can then see like, ooh, this seems to be going to plan or not going to plan. Like I often wish authors didn't just skip the planning part of things as often as they do. But then there's the tension of suspense of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing which this is kind of a nitpick, but like there's this like scene at the beginning of Red Seas where John betrays Locke. I'm like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Like that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. That
Then
that
like
was the
we're
thing
halfway
early
through,
on.
we catch up
Yeah,
to him, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah. The books started with that, and I actually also I did not love that beginning, because I'm like yeah, I'm
They're
like,
like
Lynch is
bros.
trying to fool us. Lynch is trying to fool us, and like he's forcing Locke to believe that Jean is gonna betray him. But I didn't feel that was organic to Locke's character. Like, I don't think he would have actually questioned that, but he presented it like he was worried.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that wasn't really book breaking for me though. So it was just kind of like,
yeah, and
yeah,
yeah,
I could have done without that.
yeah, me too. And but the fact that it was just like this starting scene, I think it also makes it easy to move past it. Like he was just trying this flourish to kind of set up this suspenseful thing for later. Um, and yeah, I also could have done without that for sure. But it was fun actually returning to that scene like much later in the book. It was like, oh, I remember this is how the book started. Like, we're cool that I'm back here. Like, that was cool to feel
Yeah,
like, wow, we had come back, and this is a very important moment in the whole like plot and story. And so that was cool. That was fun. But I kind of wish he handled it a little bit differently in the
yeah. I
beginning.
mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, it was not like book 3 at all. It wasn't like, oh no, and it just killed all momentum. It was just it was just something I was kind of like, could have done without. But like, I don't know
Oh
that
man,
first
that
book. And I know
yeah.
there's people who are like, I don't like how it goes from flashback to. I don't know. It was just a thoroughly satisfying. Have you ever had that book where you read it and you put it down? You're like, like right after like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just I love that John and Locke, like maybe it's just that part of me that just wants like karmic justice in the world or something. But I just love that. Spoilers, by the way, for anyone who hasn't read The Lies of Locke Lamora. I just love that the Gray King and the Falconer just get utterly demolished by because
Yeah,
my
yeah.
god, especially the Falconer, that was just
Yeah, he was
that
such an
was that,
evil jerk.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
and throwing his, like, power around, like, man, yeah, that was very satisfying. I'm right with you.
There's the old saying, "Screw around, find out." That's what happened. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, book 2 was also really good, but like, I mean, the ending especially was really good in that one.
Ooh, yeah, I had the same thing with, Project Hail Mary. like just such a satisfying, engaging like read. You get to the end, like man, that whole thing I was so invested and engaged, and it was fun and cathartic. And so yeah, Andy Weir is really good at that for
I'm a bit of
his books.
I'll admit, I'm a little bit of a sci-fi snob, so like I'm really picky with sci-fi, and I
Mm.
like The Martian. I think it's a good book. I enjoy it. It's a lot like it's kind of like Robinson Crusoe in space, I
Yeah,
guess.
I've read that. I've read Crusoe and also The Martian. It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
A very modern sci-fi take on that story, yeah.
I mean, it's very much like I mean, if you're familiar with, it's very much going back to that kind of golden age, Um, yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
thanks, Kindles and Kicks.
Piranesi's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I was raving about that after that was another one of those books where just man, I was so invested in it, so engaged the whole way through. There's something to standalone books like that that are just from cover to cover telling a complete story. And like Song for Our Bone recently was that for me. Man, when a standalone just packs that complete punch, that could be really special. I'm glad Kindles and Kicks. I'm glad you really loved it. Yeah, I also really want to reread it. Man, I did feel like I wanted to immediately reread it. And that's one of those books where it would be like cozy to return to it, but also knowing more about it, I think a lot of that read would feel very different with the foreknowledge you have. So rereading that would be cool.
I don't know if you watch Beard of Darkness, but I think it's kind of I'm waiting for him to read that book. I don't know if he's read it already, or if he's about to read it, but I really I it's funny because his name is Matt Sorensen, and the character's name in Piranesi is also Matt Sorensen. I thought, I'm like, oh man, I'm wondering when he'll see that. I bet that'll be
Oh
hilarious.
yeah.
But
Wow, Kindles and Kicks is also reading Song for Our Bone. I'll have a live discussion about that, which will mostly be spoilery, so don't watch it tomorrow, but maybe catch it on recording with a couple people tomorrow evening. But yeah, Guy Gavriel K's prose. Have you read any GGK? This is the first time.
He's one I've wanted to get to. He's like Le Guin, Zelazny.
Yeah,
I wanted to get to him for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I totally agree with Kindles and Kicks. This is the first time I can remember. I've been reading so much over the past many years that I was amazed by the prose, just the elegance of it. Like I was blown away. I've often felt maybe a line here or there from Erickson or Hobb was really like well crafted and elegant, but I've often been just more immersed in those books where I'm not really noticing the prose. But man, I was going back and rereading lines and noticing lines like, wow, I just want to stop and pause here and like process that, because like he just had a very timeless quality to the writing. It felt like I was easily able to feel like I was back in like medieval France. And it's not like he's using a lot of really obscure words, but just elegantly crafting sentences in certain ways. And man, it just blew me away. I feel like it's the most beautifully written book I've ever read. Yeah, the prose was something special. And the first time in a long time, I really noticed it like all throughout the read. And it didn't really stop me from being too immersed either. Like I was able to be immersed in the story and care about that. And so it was a really unique read for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my only 5-star rating I've given so far this year, anyway, is Kindred. Which again, I'm sure Darko will have a lot of thoughts on, but that book was great. I mean, I'll admit the prose isn't like something to like go home about, but like it's one of those books that felt like it was exactly what it was meant to be, like from the beginning.
Which book? Kindred. Yeah.
You're just like from the beginning, you're hooked, and you're just completely in from the begin. You're just from the beginning to the end,
Oh man, I gotta take the plunge, even though I know it's gonna be intense. I gotta do it. Wait, is Kindles and Kicks saying "Song for Our Bone" is life changing or Kindred? But Derry has just read the Fiona of Our trilogy, GGK's like debut portal fantasy. Which now I'm gonna read everything GGK has written for sure. So I'll double back and get to that at some point. But Derry, you would love this. You would love this book. Just this one would be guaranteed great read for you. Yeah. Are you planning to read more GGK, Derry? But I would guarantee this for anyone who's just willing to go on a bit of a more slow burn style and take your time with it. Yeah, I couldn't imagine being disappointed by this one. Like the elegance of the writing, the heart of the different storylines and the character arcs, man, so good.
I'll have to check that out at some point. It's
Kindles and Kiss was saying Kindred is life changing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, when me and Darko had it was kind of funny how that came together because I was just gonna start reading it, last month, and he's like, "Oh hey, I'm about to start reading it too. You want to just do it together?" And I'm like, "Okay." So that's how that worked. I'm like, "All right, yeah." We had some great chats, and then we had a great conversation, and he put out his video, and I'm like, "Wow, I was not seeing that coming." I didn't see it coming anyway.
Well, Kindles and Kicks need some more GGK suggestions now. I mean, he doesn't have that many books, and I like to go through authors kind of in chronological order, kind of. Like, I like the idea of reading their earlier stuff and working my way through to the more recent stuff where I can. Good. Yeah, I actually got that one ready to go. That's one of his earliest ones, right after the Fiona Bar Tapestry. I think he wrote that. So that one's one of his higher fantasy ones. I'm going to give that one a read somewhat soon. One of his other early historical ones is The Last Light of the Sun. I think a Viking style situation and setting, but I'm excited for that one. But I am most excited, I think, for the Sarantine Mosaic, which is a duology, which is kind of like a Byzantine Empire setting. But
it's a play on the Yeats poem "Sailing to Byzantium." I can't think of the name at the moment.
Oh yeah. I think I know what you're talking about there. Derry says GGK is someone I'm saving for later because I know I'll love him. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to have those reads that you're saving. Man, I feel like I've been doing that with a bunch of things too.
Yeah, I'm really yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to read Oh really? I didn't see that.
Yeah. Huh?
But yeah, no, it's I only saw a little bit of that because I had a D&D game, and I'm like, sorry guys, I have to get going. It's because of D&D. But yeah, that was a good episode. Yeah, it's like I've been trying to do some more things on my channel recently. I've been starting some new stuff. Like I started the series called "What's the Big Fuss" on my channel, where I cover books that, as I like to say, are making the rounds on YouTube. And
oh no, that's a great idea. I love that.
I'm about to start Malice soon for that. So yeah.
Oh man, that's one of those very like personally special ones because I read it early on in my return to fantasy as an adult, and just the title of the series, "The Faithful and the Fallen," like gives you a sense like it's really classic style fantasy with heart. There's so much heart in here, man.
Yeah, it's
and gritty. The Fallen too. Like there's a lot of grittiness and amazing.
Also, I started a thing called "The State of Science Fiction" on my channel because, like I said, I like science fiction a lot, and I do think it gets a little underrated on the BookTube. I mean, I did read Kindred, but I don't know if that's really sci-fi. It's more like a sci fantasy historical. I don't know, but
So you call yourself a little sci-fi snap, so I want to dig into that a little bit. I have a weird relationship with sci-fi. In my like post-college days, I was trying to read some classic sci-fi, like Asimov's Foundation series, which I didn't love. Some Rendezvous with Rama, Arthur C. Clarke, I liked again, didn't love it. Stanislaw Lem's like Solaris. So I was trying to read that stuff from that kind of era, like a lot of those are from like what, 60s, 70s. I'm not too sure. And I don't know, I didn't get enamored, and I know I have so many more authors from like that era to still try, like Heinlein and Philip K. Dick, and so I still have to explore that more. And then I have like major gaps in like 80s and 90s sci-fi, like Peter F. Hamilton, Alistair Reynolds, Ian Banks. Like I have a lot of those books on the shelf ready to try. But I've done a lot of more recent stuff. So like Cixin Liu's Remembrance of Earth's Past, I love. And then more sci fantasy like Sun Eater, Red Rising. What else? Like I picked up a few recent ones. I don't know if you can see them. Mickey 7 series. That's a cool one. But so I've done some older stuff, some newer stuff, and I have a lot more to go to fill out my kind of sci-fi repertoire. So I am curious from your perspective, like, what have you read that has really, made you into that sci-fi snob, or that you think is really great?
Well, I mean, I started this state of science fiction because, well, for one, I'm very passionate about the genre, and two, I wanted to hear different perspectives from people who are also, interested in the sci-fi genre. Books that have, I'll admit, I've been really bad at keeping up with sci-fi the last couple years, but I grew up reading stuff like H.G. Wells's, which, I mean, I actually just read this short story called "The Machine Stops" not too long ago, and it's kind of interesting reading that like proto science fiction before it like blew up, because like it's interesting seeing where these guys' heads were at before we got to there. So, but I really like H.G. Wells a lot. Again, this might be a nostalgia one for me, but I grew up reading his books. I love them. Bit more adventure-y than something like Asimov, where it's more like it's almost like a historical document at times.
Yeah.
But
okay. So you go back much earlier.
Jules
Verne, were you a fan of?
I do like him, but there's just some of his stuff that I don't know. He's more of an adventure story writer, which is, I mean, I read Journey to the Center of the Earth when I was a kid, because I remember watching a movie and I thought it was really cool. And the book is pretty cool too, but it's like a bunch of older guys walking into the center of the earth.
So what about more recent decades of sci-fi?
Well, okay. I mean, I'm trying to go down here. I think you would like.
Keep talking. I'm gonna grab something I want to show off.
I was gonna say to Ben, I think he would like Heinlein. He's not so much about the speculation of he's not like Clark or he's not like Asimov or Clark, where he's more like the ideas are kind of where it takes precedence over like telling a good story. Heinlein is more of a storyteller, I'd say. He's very good. But you have to get to a particular point, because there was a point where you just went off the freaking rails.
Wait, so which ones have you read? Oh, by the way, this is what I just picked up at a used bookstore. It's Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's like a Folio Society. Nice naked hardback version.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for that one. I don't know if I think of it as fondly as oh yeah, I actually had I had Raph on most recently on State of Science Fiction, and he's always an interesting guy to talk to. Philip K. Dick is one that really had an impact on me, as I think his vision was so different from everybody. Like, he wasn't really in the kind of golden age, which was like Heinlein, Asimov, and he wasn't really in like the new wave, which was more like Moorcock and J.G. Ballard. Also, is really I've only read a couple of his books, but High Rise in particular I think is fantastic. Jeff Vandermeer, in terms of modern writers, I think Jeff Vandermeer is because like when I think of best, because I think he is best sci-fi writer we have living right now. His book Born is like, I actually like it more than, like, a lot of people will say Southern Reach trilogy, and I would agree with that. I think those are great books, but I just, for some reason, Born really affected me on such a level.
Okay, I gotta check that author out. He's been pretty off my radar because I've been doing mostly fantasy.
Yeah, I know.
Sci-fi, I've done some Ted Chiang and and
Shane's good. He's
Exhalation. The stories in Exhalation I've been reading recently been really awesome. Love those.
like I'll put it this way. I've said this jokingly, like this is kind of a joke, but like kind of, but like I am not sexy. Like I'm not a sexy booktuber. Like I like Philip K. Dick and American Gods, and um and like, oh man, China Mieville, and people are like, what the fuck is this? Like, sorry, I don't mean to swear on your channel,
No,
but
it's fine. It's great.
it's like, what is this? Who is this guy? Like, what is he talking about? Like, I did a Lolita review on my channel recently, and they're like, what?
Oh, Derry just got Exhalation for $1. Great pickup.
Wow. Yeah.
Great pickup. Those, I have not finished it, but like the first 4 or 5 stories in there, all amazing. Just so compelling, so interesting on the ideas front, but compelling stories. That's what I'm after, really these days.
Yeah, that's always the thing with science fiction, because like so often you'll read a book and you're interested like conceptually in what's going on, but like there's not like character in there, and you're just like, man, this,
Or even it doesn't have to be such compelling characters. So like Remembrance of Earth's Past, 3-Body Problem, Dark Forest, Descent. Like, I was so engaged in those books, but it really often, I think, wasn't about the characters, but about the plotting and the situations. And it wasn't really the ideas even. It was the plotting that was carrying me along, that was so suspenseful and tense. And so it doesn't need to be even like, they don't have to be really well-drawn, complex characters, but has to have probably something either on the plot front or the character front to get me to latch on.
It's like, I'm not really oh wow, she got the crippled god.
The MMPB. Yeah, I gave up on the MMPBs in Malazan because they got to be too brick-like and tough to read. So I tried to get all the trade paperbacks.
I don't like, I've always wanted to try Malazan, at least like give it a shot, because like unlike something like the Wheel of Time, where like I probably can suspect that I won't like it, but like Malazan seems more, because I like darker stuff. And
no, I would place a strong bet that the series would be a hit with you. Yeah, I think that.
I don't know. It's definitely one that like I wish more, because I've heard people are like, dude, there's like dinosaurs in it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to see that. I wish people would say that more rather than like, oh, it's so difficult.
Oh, can I share my screen on something that I thought think you might find a little interesting? I have never done this on StreamYard before. Let's see if it gives me options for Windows. Oh, it does. Okay. So, did you see the Broken Binding release some art for the Gentleman Bastards?
I heard they did. Yeah.
But you haven't seen the art? Okay, so there's a scene. The scene that we were talking about was released as a new art piece in there, and I'm curious what you make of it, because I have some of my own thoughts. Do
you mean the one they put out recently where they're on the bridge? What's that? Oh, is that
That's the opening scene we were talking about from Red Season.
Oh, wow.
Red Skies.
Wow, that looks great.
It looks great. I love the composition with the fire, but then I was like, oh, I've never really seen a depiction of. I've not really looked at art.
I thought it was in a city. Art. That's fascinating.
I have not seen many depictions of Locke and Jean. And
I thought that was back in the city. That's interesting.
The perspective of this it makes Locke look like a little hobbit. Like I'm not loving Hobbit Locke here. I do love this painting overall.
It kind of looks like the kid from How to Train Your Dragon a little bit.
And so like Jean is supposed to be like this huge lumbering person, but here he looks just like a regular sized, well built person next to.
I thought he kind of looked like the mountain a little bit.
Oh yeah. But like, I don't know. I feel like I would have wanted them a little closer to the front, so Locke didn't look so much like a hobbit.
That's
cool.
That's great.
Cool painting.
I was about to say, if you're talking about that one where they're on the bridge, the new like cover for Locke Lamora, I was like, yeah, I thought it was fine. It looks a little young adulty though.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's not the new deluxe edition from Broken Binding. That's just like the new whoever releases those books, but just like the new regular trade edition.
Oh wow, that's some
Yeah.
amazing. Like that was an amazing painting though.
Oh, Kindles and Kicks is restarting Malazan. Does that mean you did not do the Bone Hunters? Man, Bone Hunters, one of my single favorite reads of all time. That's where you got to make sure to get to if you restart, because man, that is a special book. It's weird a little bit when a series like has such a strong peak for you, like in the middle, because then I didn't love Cripple God, like the ending, nearly as much as like that middle peak for me. Um, still good, but like, yeah, I really do love when there's this build up and I'm getting more and more invested and engaged, and the ending just is like I'm at maximum engagement and investment, and the ending blows me away. Like that's usually the experience I want to have with the series.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to. Oh, yeah, I saw a little bit of that, and then I watched Tori's imposter syndrome episode, which I liked
Like,
a lot.
oh, I gotta check that one out. But this is such a fascinating thing, because like I think it's happening in Sun Eater to some extent, although that series is not complete. So I've heard people have been liking Disquiet Gods as much as Demon in White. So like, if Brachio can somehow like not make Demon in White the peak experience of book 3, but like it continues to even get better and better in book 6 and then the finale in book 7, like that'll be an accomplishment, because it's a weird thing if like a middle book in a series is just such a staggeringly like masterpiece of an achievement, that like it like for that to be in the middle. I mean, it's cool that it's anywhere, but it I don't know, it's weird, because then as you're still with it, and it feels like, oh, this isn't as compelling as it got, for the very particular like plot reasons and where the characters are in their arcs of that time. And it was just something special maybe that happened along the way, and then the ending maybe doesn't live up to that, because the ending's wrapping up the story differently. And it's a weird thing, but I'm hoping Rakia finds a way to beat Demon in White, because Demon in White, like Bone Hunters, just feels like just like you couldn't imagine anything more epic and just like blowing you away with sequence after sequence. Just these books. Then where does an author go from there? But it's a good problem to have, that a middle book was so good that it overshadows the later stuff.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's it's interesting. Because like again, I'm real picky, I don't generally read, like I generally stick with trilogies, which is why I'm more keen to try like Robin Hobb, than like
With
maybe
all
Stephen
the
Erik's.
the sub series,
Like
all the trilogies.
I could read like the like Fitch trilogy or whatever it's called. I forget the name, but I could read that, and I could just sit down and wait a bit, and then just like that. I'm sure Dario was very
Yeah.
pleased to hear that, but
I think Derry's onto something with this, because we're used to, going through kind of story arcs, and long series like Wheel of Time. It's one long story divided up into 14 volumes, and so after thousands of pages, you're still in just like the middle section, and a lot of people do get fed up with that, because there aren't those kind of beats of resolution. And so the Rumley Elderlings did a real awesome thing, I think, with all the sub-series, because you do have these really clear arcs that are fairly self-contained, that tell a complete story from start to finish in those chunks of 3 books. And it allows you to feel like you've gone on a journey, wrapped it up. I think Derry's on something, that it helps with a really long series to have those.
yeah, it's interesting how that works. It's
Derry thing. It's time for you to do Farseer, but then
Farseer.
live
Thank you.
ships. Then live ships. Yes. Yeah. Kindles and Kicks didn't make any sense how great live ships is. I was with you. I was like,
That's probably the most interesting praise I've heard for any book in my life. Thank you.
I waited years because I had heard so much hype for it that I was like, I felt almost uncomfortable. Like I didn't want to start it and then not like it, or I felt intimidated by it a little bit. I knew it was going to be pretty heavy too, like emotionally, and and it was, but it really got me wrapped up, and it was amazing, and it blew me away. But it exceeded my expectations,
Yeah, I think
and
our friend
yeah.
Colin really enjoyed it as well. So
Oh yes, oh yeah, just blew me completely away and got me so on the Hob train. Yeah, there are
yeah,
natural breaks, time jumps, so taking breaks totally works. Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
mean, like next year I could do because I have a bunch of books I want to get to this year. I don't know if I could fit Farseer in there unless I decide like if I pull a Blade itself, where I just decide to read it one day out of boredom, and then this is great, or something like
Oh
that.
man, yeah. No, you got to start that. I would start it soon, just because you could go on that journey for years. Breaking up the sub series and so just you want to get that train rolling at some point. But there's too many. There's too many great series. Like I would tell you, Realm of the Elderlings is a priority, or Malthan's a priority, or Faithful and the Fallen. I mean, there's so many awesome series there. We can't divide our time a million ways. It's brutal having all of these choices out there for us.
Like another one of my unconventional picks is like Black Leopard, Red Wolf. Like seriously, like I brought it up on my
Ooh,
friend John's stream, and like people were
yeah.
like, "That book sucked," and I was like, "Oh man," I was like,
I've
"Man,
yeah, I've not heard a single thing about that. I think on BookTube that I follow, except for I feel like once Daniel Green, I saw it on a tier list and he didn't like it, and
I
like
thought his
so like
thoughts were interesting." It's not for everyone, for sure.
yeah, but it's weird how like a book like that might be actually like a big seller, but in our corner of BookTube just doesn't have the hype or doesn't appeal widely to the more popular booktubers, and then that hype train doesn't get rolling for it. Yeah,
Or well, I'm sure Derry will be pleased to hear this, but I'm hoping at least somewhere to, I'm hoping at least somewhere I could start uh guards this year. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but hopefully I'm gonna do it sometime this year. Because I'm finally like, you know what? I'm gonna give this I'm gonna give this wacky British man with a cowboy hat. I'm gonna give him a shot. I'm gonna see how he is. Because like seriously, he's
yeah,
one of those guys, kind of like Abercrombie and even Lynch to a lesser extent. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you should read it," and I'm like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
maybe someday." You guys should read
yeah.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy while you're at it. Yeah, that's another one of sci-fi. Douglas Adams, I think.
Oh yeah, I read all that when I was in high school. Actually,
Oh,
I
that's
enjoyed
yeah.
it then. I enjoyed it then. Kindles
Um,
and Kicks had a coin flip between these massive series. Like what? That's a crazy thing to do because that coin flip is determining like so many future hours of your life. I love that though. That's great.
that's sad. I've done similar things in the past. So like, man, I can't make up my mind. Give it
And
away, fate.
Derry loves Garth. Man, I gave Discworld a try with Mort and just didn't ever really get into that. And it's been really hard for me to muster up the energy to try another Discworld book. But I should try Guards or some of the other ones like Going Postal or Small Gods that get rave reviews.
Yeah, apparently, it only gets. I was also told that the Color of Magic would be an interesting place to start. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't know. Like guards sounded more like my thing because it's like just
Yeah.
guards kind of. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but like just from what was pitched to me, I'm like, okay, this one seems like the one I'm gonna start with, see where it goes, and we'll see where it goes. I don't know.
There's something to be said for trying the things that are really popular, for current readers because there's going to be so much discussion you can have with people and common touch points and like we're able to chat about Gentlemen Bastards and but no one's going to be able to talk about Empire of Salt trilogy with me except for Kyle from Read by
Oh,
Kyle.
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe I'll join you on it because I like unpopular things. If you didn't gather that already, I mean, my God. But I like my fair share of pot. I do like my normie stuff. I like Gentlemen Bastards and First Law.
Oh, that's good
Um,
to know. That's good to know, Derry. I should try going postal or guards.
going postal
Oh.
almost sounds like slang for like a school shooting or something. Like I always get weirded out by that.
Yeah.
That title. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of
Like,
those Discworld titles are puns or double meanings. And,
yeah, like there's one that like references Macbeth, and I really love Macbeth, so I might try that. Like
one of the Discworld fans that recommend not starting at the beginning. Yeah, I made a mistake with Mort as a starting point. So for a while I was like a real close follower of Daniel Green's channel. Before I branched out and found more niche booktubers who my taste lines more with. And he was just like for a while raving about the death books in Discworld and just raving about the character of death and so I was pretty hyped about entering Discworld through Mort, and then the character of death was great, but was not heavily featured in the book. The main plot just did not really interest me, and I didn't find a lot of the humor really hit from that book. So
yeah,
not
I'm
a good starting
nervous.
point.
Like I'm gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be like Douglas Adams, like but I don't know. Maybe someday I'll.
That's Derry's favorite, Weird Sisters.
Oh yeah, I'll have to try that because I freaking love Macbeth
Okay.
a
Oh,
lot.
is that the starting point for the witches books? I guess.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll add that to the list. And like also I'm hoping to start Lonesome Dove in the summer because like that's another one that everyone's like, bro. It's one of those I like to call everyone and their grandma's been telling me to go read it. So like I'm gonna take a shot. Hopefully it'll work out. I mean it's a chunky boy, We'll
yeah, I put Lonesome Dove and Pillars of the Earth together in these categories of like they get such hype and like people fall in love with them, and they're just like these chunky boys, and that are also like more tied to the real world, which to me right now is very much like something that does not really pull me in. So
well, yeah, I get that. I mean, we all like different things. Sometimes I find a lot of books that I enjoy are really when the setting is a character in and of itself. I always think that's like China Mieville is really good at that. Vandermeer is also good. Oh, Mike Molman's here. I actually talked to him recently on my show. Let me tell you, that was a cracker. I love that. I love that episode. Yeah, he gave me his books, and they were in these beautiful wrappings. Oh my gosh, I felt bad.
Mike Mullman, the famed author of Becoming a Druid and the more recently released Desperate Dispatches. I can't wait for the audiobook to come out for this one because I like reading these immersively with the amazing audio by James Meunier.
And, yeah, I mean it was kind of hilarious. Like he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that'll just he'll just tell you like it is, and not in like one of those like angry grandpa way. It's more like, yeah, this is how it happened.
Mike,
it's really like bluntness, really dry delivery, and I just think it's great. I love it.
Mike, you are famous in my life, in my world. Man, you're a superstar. Like I've loved the 3 books I read from you, and just you've transported me to another place and gotten me to inhabit some really interesting lives and experiences. And man, that's something I don't write myself. I don't really have that creative drive, and I just so admire that when other people are able to create from nothing and transport me. So,
yeah, I mean one of my he was nominated for a Benghis Award. Oh yeah, I forgot you did that.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'm hoping to do. Is cover more indie books because I've generally covered like traditional published books. Like I really want to try. Like I read Andrew Meredith's Thrice in January, which was good, but the reading experience wasn't fun because I had to read it on my phone, and that really discombobulated me.
Yeah, phone reads have always thrown me off, and they give the book a disadvantage for sure.
It was good. It was good though, and I mean, I've talked to Andrew on my channel, and he might be one of the sharpest dudes I've met in a while. Like, he's really smart writer.
Oh yeah, Derry feels the same way as me. Yeah, no writerly aspirations at all. Like I have zero. I have no desire to get my own, thoughts and words out there.
Hoping to
So
read
yeah,
Legend of Blackjack. I hit it off with AR with them on because I've been kind of going around
yeah,
talking to indie authors recently because I'm like, you know what,
yeah. Yeah,
why not?
I really liked Legend of Blackjack because that was such an interesting read because it it feels like a nostalgic portal fantasy trip meant for adults to go on, like like that, is has a protagonist who's like a preteen, like I think around 12 years old, and he's going on this very classic portal fantasy kind of journey, but really feels like it's pitched towards adults, a little gritty, and so it was a really interesting read. It's just doing something really different and cool. I liked it.
Yeah, no, that might be one of my favorite. Like, I have a lot of favorite episodes that I've done on Britain's Hangout Hour, but I really like that one because it was kind of funny because I was gonna ask him about Legend of Blackjack, and like we didn't even talk about it till like an hour in because like we just hit it off really well. We were
Yeah,
talking
no,
about like,
he's such a fun guy because he invited
man,
me
he's
to
a
be
great
a
dude,
captain.
man. He's a nice
A
dude.
captain in like his summer readathon, and so I
Mhm.
got to go on his channel a bunch as a captain. He was so much fun, just bringing lots of people in the community together, both authors and readers.
Like
Um,
what's the other one? Though God, I always get that name mixed up. Let me look on my.
I will be so curious to see like his new trilogy that he's working on. I'm gonna like
Oh,
Legend of Blackjack was his debut first book. Like it's always interesting to see how authors develop and change as they get more practice writing books and completing them. And I'm really curious to see what the
yeah.
next
Oh my God, what
the
is it?
next era with the novel is going to
I
be
have it
like.
down here somewhere.
Oh yeah, I did it a lot with his audio because I had an ebook copy and I didn't love reading it on my computer. I didn't even have a Kindle at the time, so I was doing it a lot by audio. And he read it, and he was great. Yeah, it was just a great author reading his own work.
Um. Oh
Sometimes
yes.
that doesn't go well.
Hopefully going to read Joe's book, Wistful Ascending, because Joe is a friend of my channel. And he's a cool guy, and I really want to. And I've been a longtime fan of superhero comics, as is he, and I'm hoping to read that. Oh yeah, the book I was thinking of was the Wickwire Watch. I really want to try that. That sounds like really up my alley because apparently it's very Dickens-esque, gentleman bastardy. So I'm like, oh yes, it sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, I want to make sure to continue to give self pub authors some love because they don't.
Man,
I
they
don't want
need
to
it,
just read.
man.
I don't want to just read stuff because people hit the jackpot. With their agent. Getting them a placement at one of the few trad pub houses, or because the trad pub houses thought their particular book at that time was marketable, or because they knew someone. Like I feel like the if I just limit myself to the trad pub out there, then there's like
Also phased from Tori. I'm hoping to read that because like I love werewolves a lot. So I'm like, yes, this I gotta read this. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it.
yeah.
Maybe in October because like werewolves I associate with horror. So and
Is the Bone Shroud by Andrew D. Meredith?
maybe I
I
don't.
know he also narrates a lot of books. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, that dude's a renaissance man. I had a it sucked because I had a great conversation with him for like maybe an hour. I then realized that I hadn't set my new mic up to my OBS yet. Not fun. So yeah, I had to like cut off like an hour of that conversation because you can't
Oh,
hear my voice. But the conversation we did had after that was really I enjoyed it. But man, that was
yeah, not great when that technical difficulties get in the way. But Mike's saying, "Oh, that's the first of the Collation cycle." Oh, I've heard about the series that people really like that. I gotta try that. And I love really lively, vivid audio narration. and it sounds like he's a pretty great narrator. So that is awesome. Um,
Probably some other ones. I just have to
yeah,
find like some that'll scratch my itch, I guess, because like I don't know, it's because like with self pub, you don't know what you're gonna get, but
yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
there's a lot of it's a lot of creativity, and it's we'll see where it goes.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm amazed when people. I don't do any kind of like acting, or if I do just impressions with my friends, like I'm usually not able to do any good ones. Yeah, I so respect and just also just love people who can change their voice and make them sound like completely different people. It totally amazes me. I don't know even how it's physically possible what some people are able to do as voice actors. So I love it when there's really vivid,
yeah.
different
I mean,
voices for characters.
yeah, like I said, Andrew, that man's a renaissance man. Let me tell you, like he's done like
Mm.
game design, he's done audiobook narration, he's written his own books, and I liked Thrice, but it's might have to get the paperback version of that and then read it again because again, reading it on your phone was just that
Yeah.
really discombobulated me. And you might
Yeah,
think,
no.
wow, that's silly, Britton, but like really, like
No, it's not silly at all. Like the last couple things I've tried to read on my phone, I've I've not enjoyed, and I have no clue if it's because I was trying to read on my
well, I guess
phone
the Way
or
of a
not.
Dan is also
Uh,
self-pub, so yeah, I'm hoping to read that very soon. So
oh my God, Derry, I was talking about this with Britton early on before you
I,
joined
I
us.
I have to
That
finish
like,
these here. So
ooh,
yeah,
Derry, I was talking about this. I think he's an amazing performer, but when I was listening to the scene, I couldn't not think about how it was Alan narrating. Like I was picturing Alan speaking like in front of a mic in his house. Like I was imagining that instead of like the scene. So I was having difficulty getting immersed in the story because I couldn't forget that this was Alan narrating. Because I know him so well. I've seen him for years on his channel. Um, I that might get in the way of my enjoyment of the story. Even if he gives an amazing performance, I kind of like not knowing about my narrators. I try not to even look up their pictures or know what they look like because I don't want to imagine them narrating. I just want to be like completely in the scenes. And audio helps me be immersed even more than just reading in print. I can close my eyes sometimes and just totally picture everything and I'm there. But I
hmm
agree with you, Derry, that Alan is giving amazing performance. I think he has a knack for this, that he could be an audiobook narrator
yeah. No, I'm
professionally. Like,
let me. I recently had a friend over, so I put all my like stack of books I had just laying here. They're all stacked up over there. So yeah, I'll get Mike's book real quick though. I'll do that.
oh, Darius do a lot of audio, so it only took a minute to get lost in it, but I get it. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a try when he releases the whole thing and see
Yeah,
if
here they
it does
are.
work.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's Mike Moment stuff.
Yeah, hoping to get to
I
this at
love
some point, but we'll
I
see.
love those. The naked hardback is such a cool thing. Like, I don't know why more publishers don't do that. They do the hardcovers with the slipcover, and those are tough to deal with. Like, if you keep the slipcover on, it's a little uncomfortable. You could damage it while you read. I love that Mike Moment does those naked
Also, here's
hardcovers.
Wavy Dan. Hope to read this soon because, yeah,
Ooh, oh yeah, Mike's working on a sci-fi book to release.
oh yeah,
That's
he was
really
telling me
cool.
about that. It
I'll
sounds
need a voice actor that can do a Martian teenager's voice. A Martian teenager. Oh man.
let me see
I'll
here.
I'll think about that. I'll think about I have a spreadsheet that has all of the audiobook narrators I listen to and which things they've narrated that I've heard and I rate them and I love thinking about narration. So I'll give that some thought. I know for a lot of the really busy famous narrators it could be hard to book them if they have their schedules booked like years in advance. Like Travis Baldry, I know like he's probably booked out years and years in advance, and now he's trying to write his own books, and he's trying to balance his two different kind of careers. But
Yeah, I actually
yeah,
recently saw Jordan's wife on iWizard did a review of oh dang it, what's his book called? Legends and Lattes. Which I should note, I'm doing a series called "What's Big Fuss," and a lot of people are just throwing books at me that they don't like, and they just want to see my opinion of. I should
Yeah.
note you can recommend books that you like too. Like you don't have to hate
Yeah.
for future reference.
Mike, I agree.
That
These
is
covers,
beautiful board. That is
the
beautiful,
stained
gorgeous art.
the
I have to say.
stained glass style of painting is really unique. I don't see that ever. They are beautiful. Like, and man, I love this. Yeah, the way the cover looks.
Now,
Wrap
Malice, I
around.
think I might enjoy. So we'll see. I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely.
Derry, I love Legends and Lattes too. Like, it was such a delightful read. I also really liked Bookshops and Bone Dust, and that's a less popular take. But Derry, did you read Bookshops and Bone Dust? That was also just gave me similar warm feelings as I was reading.
I should note that like some of my favorite episodes of Britain's Hangout Hour that I've done are the ones where I didn't really know what to expect and I was just completely surprised. Like you were that experience and Derry was like that because I'm like, well, I mean, Ben's a nice guy, but our book taste doesn't really align to, or well, it does, but I mean, we'll see where it goes, and that was a great time though.
Yeah, you really put yourself out there. Like, you have so many episodes of your show. This is only the fourth time I do it. Like, I love how much like you just want to chat with everyone and anyone. I feel like I almost want to really know the person pretty well in advance, but you're just
enough,
willing to go off and find anyone, and I love that. I want to be a
well,
little
for one,
more
it's to keep me
adventurous.
busy because I like to keep myself busy, but at the same time, I also I don't like making people wait for stuff. But it depends. It depends.
Derry's waiting for Bookshops and Bone Dust, but if you like Legends, I think going in with, if you want something a little bit similar, should be really great for people that love to read. It's cool that a bookshop is at the heart of that book. Anyone read Dandelion Dynasty?
I've heard of it.
I have all 4 ready to go now. I know.
Darko's a big fan of that series.
I am very confident I will love that. I have enjoyed Ken Liu's short story collection, and I mean, he was translator for some of my favorite books with Remembrance of Earth's Past. I am so hyped to read it. I think I'm gonna take the plunge and do it this year.
Yeah, it's oh, thank you guys. It's
definitely agree there. Saying you can follow tangents through.
Well, Derry was saying that. She's like, "Oh, it was, it's like, oh, I was talking too much." I'm like, "No, this is great." Like,
oh yeah, Kindles and Kicks is loving Dandelion Dynasty. I'll love to hear it. Yeah, so many people have such a strong, like, really deep experience with that series. Like, it generates really passionate responses, which always, I note that, and then when I see a lot happening all over the place, I know that it becomes something I need to try. And Derry, you're saying if you don't pick up Sun Eater as your next new read, many Discord users will be cross with me. I mean, great choice, but there's too much out there that's great.
Very British of you. They'll be cross at you. Like Narnia.
Yeah, that's an idiom that we just don't really use in America these days. Yeah.
I love those British shows when they're like, "Oh no, we have to go. Dad'll be cross at us." Something like that. I don't know. That was terrible. I apologize.
Kindles and Kicks, where are you in Dandelion Dynasty? What book? And that's one that I feel like it's gonna be so good for me that I need to wait for the perfect moment where I'm less busy with work and can devote my full attention to it. But that's never that time period is never gonna come where the perfect moment arises. I just gotta do it. Ooh, you're in book 3. Okay, yeah, nice. Right in the midst of it.
Yeah, I'm always one. I was back in 2021, I had made a thing with myself of reading books from minority authors. Sadly, I had some personal stuff come up, so I didn't really follow through very well on that. But That's some interesting experiences, though. I'm always looking for stuff that, you know, isn't just from white guys.
Yeah, yeah. If I
There's
read,
plenty of
if I
great stuff from white guys, but you
yeah,
know, I want to give
yeah,
I want to give
no,
everybody love. You know,
because
Like,
everyone different people come from all different backgrounds and have different experiences. Like when I had a year where I read mostly like white male authors, I was like, oh, like maybe I should pay more attention to you know my author demographics and try to spread around the love a little bit. And the next year, I tried to read more female authors and like yeah, like there often is like this different sensibility uh, with female authors compared to male ones that I think is really valuable to read both um, and then to read people from different countries and cultures and oh yeah, it's you learn things from different cultural backgrounds and what when you were doing that, did you any reads stand out as being really important ones for you
um,
that are gonna stick with you?
well, like I mentioned earlier, Black Leopard, Red Wolf. That book that was one of those. I don't know if you've had
Ooh.
any of these reads, but that's an interesting way to put it, Derry. But yeah, no, that book was one of those kind of like Perdido Street Station, which I read in 2022. And that was around the time I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give
Mm.
this booktube thing a shot. But I'm digressing. But that one just knocked me off my seat to the ground.
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
oh. And like, oh, this is what fantasy could be. Like, oh, one of those reads. Um, Now I should note,
Oh,
this
wow.
might not be one that everyone will like,
Hello,
but
Miss
I do
Garfield.
recommend you should at least try it because it's a great experience. I enjoyed, or well, I don't know if enjoy is the right word because it's a very dark story. But I was astonished, let's put it. I was thoroughly appreciating the experience, It's uh yeah.
Ooh, but I love that this vivid experience. No, that makes me wanna dig in.
Like
Uh,
that's the stuff I read for, Like, it's one of those
mm,
experiences where like, you know what? This is why I'm reading. This is worth the time. Yeah,
yeah.
I put
Yeah,
in
no, that I had
ended with
a
one of those
similar
books.
yeah, similar thing with Empire of Salt trilogy that I just binged this whole thing over, like, the last, like, week and a half. They're all short, less than 400
I'll
page
have to try
books,
that out. It seems like right up
and,
my
uh
alley.
and it's so quirky with like you never know what's gonna happen. All the characters feel like anti cliches, and just oh man, there's some humor in it, and just so unpredictable. Really, just not unlike any fantasy I've read. I've read so much modern fantasy, and this one just stood out. And yeah, those vivid, strange reads can can be really cool because then they really stand out in my memory. Whereas like others that were solid experiences, but that maybe were a little bit more generic, like Rayur Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. Like I like that, but it's left very little mark in my memory. Like I read it like 5 years ago,
Well, I mean,
and so
I like
it's not something
bromancy, so
that's
I might like
yeah.
that one. We'll see.
Oh, I liked it, but it's just it hasn't stuck with me too much. Like a lot of the details or the emotional experience of what reading those were like it hasn't stuck with me too well. And later on, like I want to feel like as I'm growing older or just reading more things that I want my memories of my reads to stick with me. I want those to the experience I had reading them. And if I lose them, it's like I have less of my life that I'm holding on to. So those real vivid reads can stick with you. Like it's almost like feels like you hang on to more experience and like you've lived a fuller life. And although we forget so much probably along the way that it's fine to have a good experience and then it doesn't stick with you. That's probably okay too.
Yeah, I've had those. Like I read this book called Gun with Occasional Music from Jonathan Lethem, and I liked it, but it wasn't one that stuck with me. It was like, yeah, it was fun. It was a good
Mm.
time. Sometimes you need those books because you need to.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sometimes you do. And Kindles and Kids mentions like everyone's talking about Spirit Cuts Their Water. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, like that sounds like a book that people are having a profound literary experience with, like the kind of thing that I kept on hearing about Song for Our Bone. And then I tried it and I had a profound literary experience. And so, yeah, when a lot of people are gushing about it in a certain way, it's probably going to be a special read, but one that you want to make sure you have the time and energy for and to not like rush through it. Like I didn't rush through Song for Our Bone, and man, did that pay off so well.
Also,
But like, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I've heard of The Spirit Cuts Through Water. I know that Evie has been like, she's like the prophet of that book. She's like, go read it. Um, uh,
Yeah. Books that are just fine are needed. How else to value Hobb and Pratchett? That's true. A lot of things in life
well, I
we
mean, those books
only
sound
have
like
it.
they've had a profound effect on you, Derry. I don't know if that's the same thing, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
But it's true. Like it's even important, I think, to have reads that are really awful because reading quality or appreciation of art, like it's one of those things, as with many qualities in life, that you really only get a handle on through contrast. Like we, by being able to contrast certain things, like certain books, certain experiences, um, tall versus short, hot versus cold, like these things really only exist in relation to each other. And I think, it's important to be able to have a wide array of experiences to be able to contrast, with reading. And so, yeah, I'm with you there. It's nice to have a wide variety, and so we can, the really special ones can feel that much more special. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I like, but even really good reads that are less memorable. Like I read Dark Matter earlier this month, and that's
Oh, Blake
more
Crouch.
like more like a popcorn, really fast paced sci-fi read. Where like I was gripped, I was hooked. I read it in like 2 days, and I had a great time with it. But then really stopped thinking about it almost completely, like after a day, and like I feel like it's, I didn't spend that long with it, and so maybe that's part of why it didn't leave too much of a mark. But it was a great time, and it was a great diversion, and it got me to care. And yeah, sometimes those reads are exactly what we need.
Oh, excuse me.
No worries, no worries. Mick Garfield just saw Dune 2. Ooh, I'm gonna see that soon.
Yeah,
Definitely gonna check
it's
that out soon.
interesting. I saw the first one, and like a lot of it was my a lot of it was my experience with the book, which was like, yeah, this is neat, but I'm not really feeling anything. Or well, not that I was
Yeah,
expecting. It's weird how that works. I mean, because
but
like,
I think this is Dune is the type of series that's just great for like a modern film adaptation, because uh, it is a very cinematic, like Arrakis is a very cinematic uh, type of. I think it lends itself to the visual medium really well. Um,
yeah, you got
yeah,
a good point there, Darko.
yeah,
Everything, not
everything can't be
mind
mind
blowing.
blowing. Nothing's yeah. Derry has my meaningful reads and brain fluff. Need them both. Right with you. Right with you.
But I'm always like, I always want books to be good, you know. I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah, good in some way or another. Although it's nice though if you look at it the angle of contrast, that if you have a really awful read, then you can appreciate like, okay, this experience could be still worthwhile to me to help me figure out my own taste and help me define more clearly like what I love and help that stand out even more. So it's a way to also cope with a negative experience. Mike says some books are like cotton candy. You know exactly what you're getting. It's good. Then you forget all about it. Yeah, that was definitely like Dark Matter. That was like for me. Doesn't always come with an emotional connection. Look at things like Jurassic Park. Fantastic book, but it's a popcorn flick sort of book.
Yeah, I mean, if I read stuff like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, or like I don't know what's another like book of that vein, American Gods all the time, I would probably get burned out. So yeah, I get what you mean. Sometimes you need a book. I mean, I try not to put books in those categories, but like I guess sometimes in my brain they just make up for it. I don't know. You know, as much as I like deep contemplation in novels that I read, I don't like it all the time. You know, sometimes I'm
Yeah,
like, you know what? I need to chill. I just need a moment
yeah,
to relax for a minute.
yeah. And just to pump up Empire of Salt even more, like this one, it feels fairly deep on in terms of character work and some theme work, but it's extremely fast paced and action packed in really cool ways and creative ways. And so it's like this cool mixture of like a popcorn epic fantasy read with something that has more heft to it and weight to it. It's just unlike anything I've tried, honestly. This I've not really read anything like the First Law series, but this is the closest thing I've come in terms of like mixture of like really personality filled voice for all these different POVs, and but it's less grimdark. There's more heart and kind of a hopeful bent towards everything. A lot of creativity with the magic too. So that's different than First Law. But in terms of like the voice of the different characters, similar prose style, gritty action, like so unpredictable. Like there's a lot of things that I think keep this closer to First Law than anything else I've read. So if you like First Law, that's even more of a reason
I'll
to try.
definitely pick that up then, because I really like the First Law a lot. You know.
Yeah. And everyone always compares stuff to First Law, and I've never really thought anything was similar until this by Con Iggulden. It's such a unique mix.
I think I also read other. Well, I guess it's not. I guess it's not really self pub anymore. But Beyond Redemption, I read that last year, and that was a interesting book. Like people are like,
Ooh.
"Oh, Joe Abercrombie's morally great." Oh no! This book, you don't know who you're rooting for. I'm not kidding. Like you're just like, you know.
Yeah, I gotta expand into grimmer grimdark because I am convinced that First Law is not really grimdark, or that it's not as grim.
Oh no, it's a grim story for sure.
But I am really heartily rooting for most of the like protagonists and POVs in First Law, and a lot of them are trying to be better. They're trying to do better. There actually are a lot of noble characters in there. A lot of the Northmen, and I don't know. It's not just like hopeless, gritty stuff happening everywhere. But I guess it's a little bit grimmer than the average, so it makes sense.
I've heard R. Scott Baker is extremely dark, so yes, I see where you're coming.
Ooh, I have his books ready to try. I have read some of like his philosophical blog posts, and I didn't really understand a lot of them, but I could see that he was a really deep thinker, and that's appealing to me if I'm in a very particular mood, like that I want to be blown away and be able to see the world differently, maybe. And so I do want to try that out. Yeah, Baker's been getting some love recently.
It's always interesting to see which books make the rounds on YouTube. You know, like Sun Eater. It was interesting when Cormac McCarthy was making the rounds because, like, I love his work. Like, one of those kind of like Ray Bradbury, or well, I mean, my top three authors are Ray Bradbury, Alan Moore, and Cormac McCarthy.
Oh, cool. I have only for all of these authors, I've like only read a tiny bit of their oeuvres, if that's the right way to say that.
Yeah, I know. I
loved Fahrenheit 451.
Oh yeah,
loved The Road, loved The Watchmen, and I haven't really read anything else by any of those authors.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, no, it was interesting seeing people because like I remember I was talking to Derry on her channel. And she was like, "Oh man, I always like watching people watch like Firefly for the first time. I mean, I've never seen Firefly, but she's gonna be so disappointed. But I was really like that when I was like watching like Jimmy and like Joanna and like, oh god, who else was reading Cormac McCarthy? Like there were a couple other booktubers who were reading them, but I just thought it was fascinating hearing other people's thoughts because, like, you know, he's, you know,
I have not tried to read Blood Meridian, but I've read like
be in a particular mood.
I've read a few pages here and there, and it's so stylized and different. And so when I saw that Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews was going to be reading it, and I'm very familiar with his like taste, I knew he was going to just hate it. And then it's like that.
I saw Matt's review, and I've actually thought about like making a response, but I'm like, you know, is it worth it? Like, it's like, not really like he's not like a lot of it would just sound pedantic. Like I've kind of thought it through in my head, and I'm like, it might just sound pedantic, and you know, might alienate me from some people.
There are some books that are so heady or stylized that like you have to approach them more intellectually or intentionally and be in a certain mood and want to engage with a text a little more deeply than just trying to read it as if it's like a normal immersive like popcorn style entertainment. And that's one of those books where I know I'm only gonna try to attack it if I'm in that place of wanting to spend more analytical time with it and try to learn a little bit what it's doing, and not just be entertained. But Derry really wants us to watch Firefly.
Okay.
I've heard this word bandied about. Like, when was this show even released?
Like the
Like,
early
I've
2000s, like when I
I've
was
always heard this
born.
mythical show that people love. I've heard that it's like only gotten one season, right, and then was canceled, and there's like this huge cult following. Like, is it a superhero thing? Is that Firefly a superhero?
No, it's like a sci-fi western.
Sci-fi western. What's
Yeah.
Firefly? Like, what is that a character? Like, I know
It's
zero about this.
the Serenity is I know some about it, even though I haven't watched it. I need to, because I mean, it's weird. I'm kind of on and off with Joss Whedon's work. Like, it was weird because I remember when he was in his heyday back in like 2012 when the Avengers came out, which is a great film. But like, I always got like this
Oh,
weird, like, this guy seems kind of like, I'm gonna be blunt here, kind of a douche, you know. And then it like
that's
came
what
out like he was
yeah,
being kind of a jerk to everyone, and I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
I'm not that surprised. But he's very good at what he does, so I'm like,
yeah,
I respect that.
yeah. It's not too surprising that some artists in any field might be douchey. But Firefly came out in 2002. That's interesting. Like, I was such a TV addict in the early 2000s when I was when I was in middle school. I'm surprised I didn't watch that then or know about it. I'm sure I would have really liked it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't
I
watched
I also
Buffy either.
never
It's
watched Buffy
bad.
growing up.
Um,
I have not read any Tad Williams yet.
I haven't
I
either. I've
I
watched
know
his YouTube show though. He's a smart dude.
I've seen in some interviews. Yeah, I've loved seeing him discuss some things, and he's someone that a lot of like more recent fantasy authors have cited as a huge influence. So I will be curious because I have a massive kind of blind spot in my SFF in terms of like
It's
the
like Le
80s,
Guin for me. Like,
early 90s. Yeah, yeah. Some
always wanted
big
to read
authors.
them,
Yeah,
just haven't done it.
yeah, yeah. But also great title. I love Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. It's just a fantastic series name. I've always wanted to read it ever since I heard of that name. Firefly is a space western. Space western. I have no clue
So
like
it was always kind
what
of
it could look like.
it was kind of
Huh.
funny. I mean, I kind of felt bad for Whedon. I'm like, man, he's always getting his shows canceled, and
Aired out of order. What? That's horrible. How could it? Man, it
he's
sounds
always
like
like,
they
his
just
shows were always getting canceled, and that always sucked. And then I'm like, oh, maybe that's why he was kind of a jerk.
gained a lot of fans during the streaming era. Okay,
Then
I
he
will
made
have
like
to
a
check it out
movie
because
called Serenity. It was, yeah, I haven't seen it, but
every so often I really just crave a TV binge, and I don't do it often, but that sounds like something I need to give a try. I tried Avatar: The Last Airbender a few years ago, and I could not get into that at all. Like, that was just geared
no,
more towards children than I was wanting as an adult, I think.
I was about to say Avatar: Last Airbender is fantastic. I wasn't saying that Firefly sucked. I'm just saying it sucked that all of his shows got canceled. he just rotten luck. Oh my god. Like, and then I'm like, oh well, he's yeah. Yeah, no, I've heard that George was a big fan of Tad Williams. Um, I what's a like? There's so many books out there.
What was it? What was it about Game of Thrones when you read it that like changed your reading trajectory in life?
Well, I mean, I didn't really know what grimdark was, and I didn't really know like when I read Game of Thrones, my fantasy was like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Magic Tree House. I don't. Again, that's another weird thing. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Magic Tree House on this.
Oh yeah, I read a bunch of those as a kid. Yeah,
Oh
they're
yeah,
great.
yeah. I mean, I was also a big history guy, so I liked Magic
Yeah,
Tree.
history, time travel. That's such that is like such a like it made you as a kid like wish you could do that
I'm
and
like, oh
take
man,
the
I wish I
like
could do
go
it.
to all those places. Yeah.
Like, I wish the teachers would like give like the kids like those books and like get them excited about history for once. But Yeah,
But
that's about it.
what got you to pick those up? Was it the show? Oh, it was the show.
Well,
Okay.
okay. For one, it was the show, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, what's all the fuss here? What's going on here? I'm sniffing something. And then I watched it, and like I didn't
Yeah.
know fantasy could be written like that. It was one of those kind of
Yeah.
like when I read
Yeah.
Pretty Street Station for the first time,
Yeah.
or like Black Leopard Rebel. I'm
Ooh.
like, I didn't know they could do something like this.
Oh man, I'm so jealous that you had that experience earlier in your life because I loved Harry Potter, but then I ignored adult fantasy. I didn't seek out anything like Wheel of Time. I if I had even looked up online like popular adult fantasy series, I would have seen like Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time. And I just like I just kept on rereading Harry Potter and ignored adult fantasy until many years later. And I'm so jealous that you discovered it all much sooner. But yeah, because it would have been so different than like
Also, it was like it
the
was like Sean Bean. I was like, oh yeah, I like
oh yeah, as Ned Stark. Oh, that was he was perfect there as Ned
yeah, no,
Stark.
but one of my
Wait, Moonface
isn't
isn't
that like I think that's one of the sayings from Magic. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've read Magic Tree House.
is that also a character in a Clash of Kings like the the fool who's in Dragonstone? Oh, what's that character's
I
name?
actually want to reread Game of Thrones again, see how well it holds up.
Oh, it was. I mean, I watched all the show and was really attached to the story, and then despised how it all ended in the show, and so I
And,
was like
as you
disillusioned
do,
with it.
I remember that.
I was so disillusioned with that whole story. So I waited years to get some more distance from that, and then picked up the books and was like, "Oh, I know how all this goes. Like, I'll probably like reading it, but it won't really involve me." And I was just like hooked in the book one from the beginning, just back in the story, loving the writing, loving getting the internal monologues because George was so great at that. And I also got a feeling reading like Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings that like, wow, this is where Joe Abercrombie got his whole style of the really voice-filled internal monologues where people are thinking things that are different from what they're saying out loud. And I loved reading Song of Ice and Fire over the last couple
Yeah,
years.
no, he's so good at it's really good, and also his characterization is just really well done.
Oh yeah, there you got it. There you got it. I was thinking of Patch Face. Um, yeah, the fool who says and sings some very enigmatic things in Clash of Kings.
Yeah, like one of
Um,
the things I liked about the books that the show didn't really touch on like as well was like it felt mystical.
hmm. Yeah, the show definitely leaned away from
Yeah, it was
the
more like a political
fantasy.
drama, which I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ooh. I
yeah.
mean, the characterization was great, and I liked the political maneuvering, but like it didn't have that oh
Some of the
crap,
more
this is real.
some of the more mysterious like plot elements or
Like
theming.
there's no
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what's her name? Like Jenny, the lady who sings it about dang it, the Summer Hall instant. They don't have her. They don't have Lady Stoneheart, which sucked. It was just kind
Yeah.
of like I had
My God,
ignored all the warning signs until like, but man, like when I was reading, I'm like, oh man, where's all this stuff? Like
yeah,
they butchered Euron in the show because
yeah,
Euron in the
yeah.
book is terrifying.
Oh yeah, so good.
He's got that
And like
horn, like you're like, oh my gosh.
Lady Stoneheart too is terrifying in the books. Like I don't read too much horror, but the Lady Stoneheart stuff was was a bit scary for me. Man, like
Oh.
yeah, those books are so vivid. Like I was just so immersed reading those, and just the scale, the scope of the series, like all the different locations, they all felt so distinctive, and this grand plot playing out on this epic scale. Like I don't need George to be like a quick writer, but I'd like to get him publishing faster because like he's probably not gonna live to like 100. I really want to see his ending. Like I want to
I
see
know.
how he
Yeah,
wraps it
I
up
know.
because I would love for the end of this whole story to not be by the dumb showrunners. Like I would love for it to be his ending, is how we all finally experience the story.
I
And
know.
I don't care. Like it's okay if this next book is not great. Like let's just get it out there. Let's get your ending. Like, I want to know how he is gonna do it.
I know it's definitely one I would love to see how he ends it, because like the show ending was, I have traumatic memories of watching the series finale. It was yeah, I don't want to think about that anymore, to be honest
It
with you.
was yeah. Uh, it was so brutal, so brutally wrapped up in how
It
they
was, it
rushed
just felt like a
certain.
punch to the testicles.
Yeah,
It was
they
just
rushed certain character
brutal.
arcs, and it really felt like the showrunners just wanted to peace out and go on to their next thing.
If I remember
Um,
right, that's about what happened. So you're not entirely
yep,
off.
yep. Uh, I trust we'll get Winds of Winter, but like, I want him to just publish Winds of Winter. Like, even if the whole like marine stuff doesn't go amazingly, like, just get whatever you have, put it in a book. I don't care if it's even like a final draft, and just get started writing on the ending, and just to have his notes and like chapters written, and like that we could get something eventually for the final volume. Like, it would be such a weird disappointment to like have 6 out of 7 of the books, and then like we're just left with the show ending. It'd be so anticlimactic for me. Like, I love the books he's put out, but I'm not one of those people that is satisfied with no closure. Like, I love endings, love having closure. I like binging series quickly and through to the end. Um, Man, I just hate the taste that the ending of the show left.
Yeah, I mean, like there's some stuff there's some stuff that I there are some things about the show I do like more than the books, believe it or not. Like the violence in particular felt more like this is how it would happen. There's like there's like parts of the like there's parts of the books where it does get kind of ridiculous with the violence, when Ramsey marries Arya, or who they think is Arya. Like there's and now I will give it, now I do know there's a lot of stuff that's like hearsay, like apparently like he made her like copulate with her dogs, with his dogs, which like I don't know if that happened, but like, I don't know. I'm going
No,
on.
some of the action scenes in the show were incredible. Like, I loved some of the action at the wall. Like, the episode that was one big battle scene at the wall was like one of my favorite things I've seen. I love the Battle of the Bastards. Like, those epic scale, really well done, like big budget battle scenes, like utterly fantastic. And a lot of the casting from the show too, like so iconic now. Like Tyrion, I am imagining Peter Dinklage as Tyrion as I'm reading, and that adds to my experience. Or Charles Dance as Tywin,
Oh yeah, that
and
was great.
I don't remember the actor's name, but Jamie Lannister is perfectly cast too. Like, I'm able to, reading the books, my experience is enhanced because I'm imagining those actors, like, and the drama and humanity and nuance that they brought to the roles. So like, yeah, there's a lot of parts of the show I love, but it it's just so brutal that it ended poorly, because that's the last experience you have with it. It really makes its mark, and it feels like it just ruins so much of that
Oh,
long journey that you had invested in.
I did read Benioff's novel, City of Thieves, and I thought it was fantastic. It was a great
Oh,
book.
that's the same guy. I have that book somewhere here. I got it many years ago. Haven't read it. Oh wow. Okay.
That was a great. I'm like, man,
I
where did
should
it go
I should
wrong with
give that
the Game of Thrones ending? This book is
a.
great, Like that was a great
I
book.
think those guys just were great at adapting the books when they had the books. Like, when I read, oh, it's over here. Nope, it's over. Nope, where is it? Oh my god, it's over here. Um, when I read Game of Thrones, I felt like I was reading like dialogue, and scene for scene beats from the book ended up in the show. Like,
Oh yeah.
they adapted it so faithfully. So I was like, oh, they were really good at like putting this book onto the screen, using this as a screenplay basically. And so, man, did that go off the rails when they didn't have books anymore.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. It's yeah. It was an experience. Yeah. No,
Appreciate
I
that the
agree
books
with
never
that.
focused on some of the violence, but lingered in the trauma in the POVs.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the like motifs or themes in that story is like how we react to trauma. So there you go. Bada bing,
Yeah, it seems like there's not actually that much action in the books themselves, and some of the action scenes even got cut off because like the POV character would get like knocked unconscious, or we just skip over them. Like he skipped a lot of like the war scenes that must have played out, in the war between the Lannisters and the Starks.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think I think Martin's a great writer. I really do.
Ooh, have you read this one?
Yeah, I did. Back in high school. Yeah, I did. It was interesting. That first half is great, and then the second half I thought really dragged.
It did drag a bit, but like the details, the gory, crazy details that he made up for the history of Westeros, like his imagination is a crazy place.
And one of the things I also liked is that one of the things I like about Game of Thrones in general is that it really plays with like how history is written. I think that's really interesting. I think that's an interesting theme that's not touched upon nearly as often in a lot of storytelling. Like I don't.
Oh yeah.
I mean, someone could probably bring something. I mean,
that's a huge theme of Fire and Blood. That was such a cool aspect of it. Is like the chroniclers and the commentary on the other chroniclers and the accuracy of them. No, that was great. I love that in Fire and Blood.
Derry asked.
Usman's here.
House of the Dragon. What did we think? I personally really enjoyed myself. I had some friends who didn't like it because they're just too jaded with the Game of Thrones experience.
Yeah, Derry. Yeah, I'm with you, Britton. I'm with you. I was blown away.
I'm like, okay, we're back in action.
I was riveted to the screen. I had not read Fire and Blood yet.
The time jumps were a little kind of, but aside from that, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I also didn't love the time jumps because I just wanted more. I wanted more seasons of this so that we got more of the young Rhaenyra and Alicent. Like I was kind of upset when we left those actors because I was so compelled by everything. But I then read Fire and Blood after seeing the first season of the show. So I got the whole story that the show's going to go through. And it was just as insane as I suspected it might be. But like the story jumps around. So like it really is being faithful. Like they would have had to invent a lot of stuff to do fewer time jumps or sustain the whole season in that earlier age. But man, I loved it. I thought it was riveting, amazing acting, the tension in like also every episode of Sky High.
Like so good.
How that guy did not get nominated for a Golden Globe is
it's a travesty.
That was the worst awards snub I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like I think he gave one of the great all-time television performances.
Oh yeah,
Paddy Considine. Like I think it was one of the greatest things that I've ever seen for any TV show. And for him not to be winning award after award, every possible award for that, and to not even be nominated is atrocious by Hollywood.
I know, yeah. But that was disgraceful.
Yeah. No, I think the show is fantastic and just oh my god, unbelievable. Everything about it, the
visual effects really good. It was like
the visual effects, the casting, the script. Man, it was so unpredictable too. But then I was just too curious. I knew it was going to take like years and years for the whole thing to wrap up, and I was just too in suspense. So I had to read Fire and Blood and see what was going to happen. But I kind of sad I did because then I'm going to be a little less surprised when all the really crazy stuff goes down.
I'm curious to see how they'll handle all of it.
Is Usman still here? Usman, are you here? Because I wanted to show off some merch that I got. I know Usman has been reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I recently caught up to that, and I got a T-shirt. Is Usman here? I like that. I have a Dungeon Crawler Carl shirt now. I am such a huge fan of that. Usman is here.
God damn it!
I was thinking about getting a Princess Posse shirt, but I like this graphic design better than that one. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that.
Well,
Man,
I was about to say, Derry, that's a little past my my expertise. I don't know why they would put a werewood in the bird game.
yes, as as a one-time reader of the series, that's also beyond my ability to theorize about. But the people that have read the series a bunch of times, like Kyle and Jimmy, like the things that they're catching as little details and foreshadowing and Easter eggs and theorizing about, like Martin is putting so much in these books, and there's so many layers to what's going on.
You
Oh,
know, the thing
Usman
about
loves it.
dungeon
Yeah.
you know, the thing about, like,
Yeah.
lit RPGs is, like, I don't know if I get them. Like, it's like
Oh, this was my first one. I had no confidence that I would like this. I had no clue what I was getting into. And the thing is though, I've never played RPG video games or D&D. So those aspects of it felt really like fresh to me. But
fair
like
enough,
uh
fair enough.
like I and they were really like de-emphasized here because it wasn't I had no clue what I was getting into. But in Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which is awesome, by the way, and it's it's not like they're in a video game. It's like a sci-fi situation where a really powerful, advanced kind of civilization comes to Earth and basically creates this like real life high stakes uh like Squid Game-esque kind of reality show
Hmm.
that people enter. Like millions of people enter it to start, or maybe just in the thousands. I forget how many people entered it, but like they're needing to like get through levels of the dungeon to just survive. And eventually, if you reach like a certain level, you'll be allowed to leave, and you can live a normal life in the galaxy. But like it's gritty and high stakes like Squid Game is, and like the video game aspects are created by this like AI who's in control of the game. Like it's like they call it an AI enhancement zone, and so like everyone is like is able to have like magical powers, and um but it's like a sci fantasy type of setup where they're not like in a video game, but
Mhm.
it's designed like they've designed this type of dungeon to be like a follow some RPG stats and tropes of like Earth video games. So it's a cool like whole setup that really works for me because it is high stakes. It's gritty. They don't what's the word? They don't spend too much time dwelling on the stats aspect like and the game aspect.
Yeah,
Um,
try it out then.
yeah.
I mean, I guess
Oh,
it's
and the
because I
audio.
play video
Yeah.
games, but, I'm like, I just go play the video game, like,
Yeah, no, it didn't feel like a video game to me at all. Like it feels more like like some screwball like massive Squid Game, like a world-sized Squid Game, uh, and the video game aspects are more just like a little bit of window dressing. But it feels more like an epic fantasy story to me, and just like really like heartfelt character work that gets you attached over time, and gritty action, and like a lot of unpredictable cool stuff ends up happening. Um, and Usman's about to start book 6. Yeah, book 6 is crazy and awesome. Uh, I'll have to catch up on some of those Carl chats you've been having, the spoiler chats. Um, but man, if you want to do audio, like the narrator for this goes above and beyond. He founded a whole audiobook company called Sound Booth Theater. Jeff Hayes, this is, and he is like a savant. Like I've watched YouTube videos of him recording cold reads for Dungeon Crawler Carl book 5 and 6 where he has not read the book before, and he's doing it on camera recording the audiobook for the first time. And I cannot get over that someone is able to do what he's doing. Like the range of voices, the emotional range, the just I thought he had like read these books deeply like beforehand and then spent lots of time prepping all these voices. He'll come across a new character and be like, "Oh, I got to come up with a voice for this one." And then it's like some really awesome distinctive voice. And I'm like, "Oh my god, like
I'll
that's
have
an
to I'll have to
iconic
I'll have
voice
to
for
check that out then when you
yeah,
put it like
like
that.
he's founded a successful company that is doing like has like a lot of other voice actors that are working for him, and he's like the flagship narrator for his group, but like savant level type of performer. And he makes the audiobooks amazing. Like they are more on the popcorn side, but really deep and gritty at the same time. So it's that nice mix I really love for my just like popcorn style reads.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely worth trying when you want lively audio. But like, even with that, there's lots to choose from. Like the Rupert Farley sharp ones, like the audio narration for those is amazing. But Jeff Hayes for Dungeon Crawler Carl is he's doing stuff that Farley and Pacey are not doing. Like the range of voices, like his voice for Donut, the talking cat, is just so good. It's inhabiting this character so well and changing his voice so that it's almost impossible to believe he's doing all these voices. Whereas like Pacey and Farley, their narrating style is different, where they're changing their voice more subtly for different characters and for female voices, and like they're still more recognizable as like their main voice themselves. But they do lively voices, but like not to the extent that Jeff Hayes is doing. Like he's doing something that I've not heard anyone else do. So for audios, they're special.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Derry's got to run. Oh, thanks for stopping by for so long. And I hope you get settled back into your house soon. I know you're getting taken care of lead paint situation there, but hopefully get back into your house. And yeah, oh, sorry, Derry, you're dealing with that kicked out of your house, but good to get all the lead paint out. Does that Dungeon Crawler Carl, like it's not as literary or highbrow as like a lot of stuff that you read, but it has
I never mind entertainment. It's like that's fine.
But it's unpredictable and quirky, and especially if you do the audio, and it's just so engaging. But it did take a little time to ramp up. Like I liked book 1, but then book 2 just went in a direction. It was kind of slowed down, and I didn't love some of the things, but it was short. Like the books started to get longer once we get to like book 4, 5, 6 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. They start to become pretty chunky reads, but they could have gone on longer. Like I just wanted to listen forever. I got to the end of my listening of them. I was like, I'm not done with Jeff Hayes. I got to keep listening to this. Like I'm not done spending time with Carl and Donut. And so I just re-listened to the whole thing. I did 2 listens of the 6 books. It was insane. That is the silliest thing I've ever done in my entire reading life. I
mean, if you love a book, I mean, you're doing a chat, or didn't John read a Song of Arbonne with you?
Yep, John Minton Talking Story. He spearheaded this buddy read of first time GGK readers. Oh, Darko's heading out. Time and location is my channel at, I believe, the same time as this stream was, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I think it's the same. Let me just confirm that. Yep, same time, same place. And the video thumbnail's up already in the live section, so you could get a notification for that. But we will start probably with a lot of non-spoiler chat, I would imagine. So we'll probably try to at least start with that. So if you don't finish, you could probably just catch the beginning, come back to it later. But sounds like you're finishing soon. And yeah, I read the last like huge chunk all in one day because I was so carried along and could not stop. And so you might finish that pretty quickly because, man, the ending of that was so amazing. Man, I love that so much. So the buddy read, yeah. John at Talking Story, he spearheaded it. It's like, and he had not read any GGK, and he found me and Chris Navo, who also hadn't read any and wanted to.
Yeah, I'm doing a buddy read with him right now. What Moves the Dead, except that man, he reads faster than I do. He just already finished What Moves the Dead. I'm like,
yeah.
He texted me last night. He's like, oh, I finished it. I'm like, already? Like, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, it's crazy. We started like at the beginning of February, and I'm like, okay, this is a pretty big book that's slow moving, and I want to take my time with it. And it's elegantly written. And I was like past the prologue, and he had just finished. And because I was busy, I was also in the middle of reading something else at the same time, so I was dividing my attention. He just zoomed through, and me and Chris Navo then took like the next few weeks to finish. Yeah, he was zooming through. Buddy reads are interesting. Like, I like chatting with about a book with people, but it's also fun if you're kind of at the same spot as you go along. So I've been doing a lot of that with Colin with Realm of the Elderlings, where
Yeah,
like
I'm doing In
yeah,
Cold Blood with Cullen right now.
and it's fun if you're
Hoping to
kind of
finish
towards
that.
the same spot, because then you can just be chatting about like, oh my god, this just happened, and you don't have to worry about spoilers, and you could be like experiencing the things at the same time with other people. Like, that's fun. That's a really fun aspect of buddy reads, but it's tough to align your reading speed with someone else.
Yeah, no, it's it's weird because like I'd started and I was getting ahead of Colin, and Colin quickly caught up with me. So, but In Cold Blood's I think it's a good book so far. So,
Oh my god, I had no clue what time it was. It's already past 10:20. I had zero clue we'd been going for almost 3 hours. But
oh yeah, I was about to say I probably should ramp up soon. I want to get something to
yeah,
eat.
yeah. I could just go on forever if no one stops me. And I just felt a hunger pang of my own. It's time to grab a late dinner here. But so we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on. This was just
Well, thanks for
a
having me
fun
on, Ben. This was
chat
fun.
that time
Maybe
did fly by. I had no
maybe
clue we
I'll
were on for 3 hours.
maybe I'll let you come on my channel. We can talk about Sharp's Tiger or something whenever I'm
Yes.
done reading
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I would love to. I'm just so curious about your reaction. And if you are inclined to do a little hybrid or immersively, the Rupert Farley audio for that is something special.
I'll have to I'll
Uh,
have to I'll have to check that out. But again, thank you, Ben, for having me on.
yeah.
This was fun.
Oh, it was great. It was great. All right, I look forward to chatting about Sharp's Tiger. Thanks everyone that was here in the chat. And yeah, you catch Britton over at Some Okie Dude. If I remember, I will try to link his channel in the description. And Britton, make sure to tell me to do that if I forget.
All right, I will do.
All right, have a wonderful evening or day ahead, everyone. And I'll catch you later.
All right.